Looks like we're live. Man, I knew I was getting close to 8, but I was sitting here opening up this other machine. I had a phishing email. You got to be careful for those, especially ones for like Amazon and other eBay places like that where they have your information. So always be aware of suspicious emails. Oh, this somebody tried to access my account from Warsaw, Poland. And click here to claim your account, and then you have to log in. Show it. We need to know it's really you. Give it. Log in, and then you just basically give them your login information when you do that. So what's going on, Clint? Let me get you that. Steven first here again, man. Very punctual. I like it. Let me get you that link, brother. You probably won't get it for a week, but I'll still send it. All right, and let's go ahead and refresh that. Yep, we're definitely live. So I hope everybody's having a good week. I need to message somebody. They were asking me some questions earlier, and it's like, man, I don't want to type all this. So a lot of typing. They've never done a all grains, so we're gonna work on that. Well, it's always hard, man. I don't know why. I have like 3 different chats. Finally, they're out one here. Here we go. Should have sent him a link. I'm afraid I'll take it away from my list. Yeah. Getting pretty good at logging in, man. That didn't take me but a minute. I was a little bit a minute late starting, though. But I'm getting used to that. So bear with me while I share these links. So I want to hear from anybody who went to Popcorn Jam this weekend. Looks like everybody had a good time down there. Missed being there. I blame Mikey. It's all Mikey's fault. He didn't come get me. So if anybody says, why didn't you come to Popcorn? Mikey, he wouldn't come get me. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So what's everybody been up to this week? We've been getting hell of a lot of rain. Hell of a lot of rain. Flash flood warnings going up. Rain yesterday and all day today. Poured for a while. I hope it slows down soon. Ground gets saturated. My basement will flood, so I'm gonna have to start. Hopefully, not picking shit up and putting it up high again. but my basement will flood if it continues to rain. It doesn't get like direct water coming in or anything like that. It doesn't rain, flood every time it rains. But once the ground gets to a certain saturation point and it has nowhere else to go, then it starts just filling up like a bowl. And that's what basements do, I guess. So we'll share as many as we can. Try to get it out to the larger groups because a lot of people are all in the same groups that are in some of the smaller ones. They're just a lot of individuals, friends, and stuff that. But some of these have some people that aren't in a lot of them, so I try to share to most of the ones that'll get out to the most people. I really wish I could just do them all at once. There's not that many. I mean, usually I get to where I just need about 5, 8 more. Depends on the day. So bear with me. Just got a few more and then we'll hopefully the question will get there. If not, hopefully I can send him a link after it stops me, like right there. So that's sooner than usual. There's that circle there. That's where it stopped. All right. Now let me see if I can share this link with the cat. Yep, she's a vocal one too. She gets going, man. She can meow up a storm. Probably one of the most vocal cats we've ever had for sure. She can go on. She's pretty loud, isn't she? I think that'll do it. Wait a minute, let me see here. No, let me give you this. That's the damn thing. Oh, I can hear me now. That ain't good. All right. Okay, doke. Well, we got that done. It didn't take too long, about 9, 8 minutes. Was you answering a question before? I don't even see what the question. What's going on, Seashine? What's up, Toby? Good to see you, brother. Damn, am I missing something? Apple bourbon. That sounds good, man. Clint, I'm not seeing the person ask the question, man. I don't. Am I missing posts? I'm not seeing it. Oh, let me turn this on. I forgot to do that. I was in a hurry. getting started. What's going on, Scott? Good to see you, brother. Same in Oregon, but y'all used to it. That's all it does out there in Washington and Oregon. Rain, especially if you're close to the coast, I guess. But man, it's seems like it's getting worse here for the days and days of rain setting in. Or it's definitely going to be a little rainier and wetter early on and dry later on. We'll see. Do you? Well, they might. Let's see which direction this is traveling. I think it's going northeast from us. But yeah, this is another butt right here. Those Smokies kind of divert things, though, when it hits those from Kentucky. It hits the Blue Ridge and the Smokies to the south, and it kind of channels it a little bit. But yeah, we got rain today, rain calling for rain tomorrow. 63% chance, 12% Thursday, 40% Friday, Saturday 12, Sunday 70. So yeah, let me see which direction the rain's going for y'all. Might be getting something coming your way. Yeah, that's radar slow. What's going on, Greg? Good to see you, brother. Fondren. I remember Deborah Joe Fondren. You ever heard of her? Yeah, you get a little rain coming your way to the Carolinas, but yeah, it's kind of. It's lightening up. No, it's just kind of going away. A lot of it going northeast. Yes, she was in Playboy, man. She was. That's why I remember, man. Probably one of the best looking playmates ever. Might even been Playmate of the Year. Probably was. Deborah Joe Fondren. Every time I see that name, I think about her. She's a beautiful gal. Have y'all? Drought in there too, huh? Damn. Appreciate you, brother. Oh, okay. Well, I was like, damn, man, am I missing something? I thought maybe he's, replying to, excuse me, I had a bit of frog in my throat. What I was talking about, Richard was asking some things, and I told him to log in. I sent him a link so he can log in here and ask. He's done a lot of sugar shines, but he's getting ready to do some grains and wasn't sure what temperature and how to convert, and didn't know much about all that. So it's tough to do that. I don't know. I guess Clint uses that voice to text. Because it's hard for me to type all this shit out, man, on the phone. How's it going, Carrie? Good to see you. Howdy, howdy. What's going on, Patty? That's good to hear. So you tested it out, boiled some water. Just be sure to always keep that thing submerged, and you should be fine. But that's definitely good news. What's going on, Mr. Pollen? Not Palin, no relation. I don't know. If I was you, I'd start pronouncing it Palin, saying, yeah, she might spell it different, doesn't she? Sarah Palin, the Alaskan. Is it? Yeah, I think I did see something about that. Yeah, there's some El Nino or something that's going to influence us really heavily this year. That's why I'm thinking they call for a pretty wet spring here, but summer and fall is going to be pretty dry, from what my understanding is. We were definitely in the dry zone up here, Tennessee and Kentucky, but we've been pretty fortunate. I'm glad I got all my plants out before all this rain came, so they're not hating it. Might get too much damn rain though. It wouldn't be good for them either. Yeah, I was gonna say down there in Florida and stuff, most of the rain comes through at once and floods. It's like we don't have any rain. Now we're flooding. Now we don't have any rain again. That sucks worse than anything. Sure does. Anybody got any questions? We were definitely here to answer them. But we'll sit here and shoot the shit. And I need to drink some more of that Wes's Shine, man. That stuff, I feel like I'm drinking my own stuff. He's managed to find my sweet spot. That's how I get my sweetness. Yeah, it's like monsoon season, sure is. Man, did I give him some shine? Him just label it, put his name on it. That's for old Shadow. Hope you're doing well, brother. I'll just leave that up there. I need that. Reach so far to get it next time. I'm definitely about to get me a new chair. His thing's squeaky as hell. Y'all hear that? Every time I move. Yeah. His ear will be itching now, won't it? We're talking about him. So what's everybody been up to? Yeah, they had some bad weather out there yesterday as well. I heard the same thing. Let me go nationwide radar and see what's going on. Yeah, we got a rude rude awakening, I guess I should say, this morning about 10:30. Me and Ann's phone's going off. We were up late, playing the bowling game. We got this little video bowling game we play. She whips my ass at that damn game. I used to be good at it, and I don't know what the hell's changed. I don't know if they updated it or whatever. I think it's all the mouse. I got a different mouse I'm using. That's my excuse. But man, I'm nowhere near as consistent on it as I used to be. And she beats my ass probably 19 out of 20 games, man. I think I won one game last night. Of course, she loves it. She loves it even more now that she beats me. I just let her win, though. I just let her win. I know she heard that. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, I got a little bit of storms blowing through. Going straight up into Canada right now. But yeah, we got quite a bit of rain earlier. And it looks like, well, interesting. There's a lot of, there's a hurricane down in Central America. Might be just a tropical depression, though it doesn't say hurricane. But anyway, enough of the Weather Channel. hopefully everybody gets rain or needs rain will get it, and hopefully we won't get too much more. Yeah, as long as it's raining, I can't mow, so that's a good thing. But as long as it doesn't flood the basement. Dual fuel generator. That's nice to have. So what you got? Dual fuel, gas and diesel. $3 buffalo shots. Well, that's not bad. It's a pretty dang on good price. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that big storm. It's going almost straight up into Canada. Man, came over to you and I went straight up. All right, here we go. With corn, do you recommend adding enzymes for conversion? Coming from a brewing background, got a bag of malted barley. Should I go all grain? Either or. Actually, it won't hurt to try to do a little bit of both. So if you have the high temp liquid high temp alpha amylase and the liquid glucoamylase, and you do have enough, enzymatic power in the barley, I know you know enough about the enzymatic power. If you've got enough enzymatic power in your malted barley, you can just use a touch, just half of what liquid enzymes that you would normally use just to help bump it along. And if you want to use maybe just a little bit less barley and have, a little less malt presence in your, distillate, you can, you don't have to depend on it, but with using both. But either way works really well. I don't think using the liquid enzymes affects the taste, but definitely using a malted barley does, and in my opinion, for the good. Some people, prefer it without. Um, and that's just a, opinion preference thing. But when I use malted grains, I'm still going to use maybe half of my liquid high temp and liquid glucose just to help the conversion along and make sure that everything gets cleaved and debranched as well as possible. But yeah, but yeah, coming from brewing background, that's great, man. You definitely, um, I would definitely go all grain either way. But it's not considered cheating using the liquid high temp and the liquid glucose, but we're trying to get it to where we don't need the sugar. So I think using those, and you can use the 2-row, and not depend on the diastatic power of the 6-row and 20% or whatever that it used to, require. Now you can use some 2-row with maybe a little better flavor profile, and use your liquid high temp and liquid bait or liquid glucose, and kind of get the best of both worlds, and get the good flavor of that 2-row, along with getting, a proper conversion. So yeah, definitely. Let us know how many pounds are you planning on doing per gallon? That has a pretty big impact on the starting gravity as well. I know beer makers probably may go a little lighter on the grain than what we do. And corn is as a beer maker, corn is going to be kind of new to you. So have you worked with corn much yet, or is this kind of your first time with corn being a beer maker? I know a lot of times most beer makers don't use corn, but if you have it, then you'll know. If not, we can help you. Because beer makers usually start at a lower temp and work up, whereas corn, you have to start at the higher temps and work backwards. So that's different as well. But your rest, you can do your protein rest and all that. It's not as critical, in clarity and clearness. It isn't as critical as it is for beer making, because you're going to distill it. It's not something you bottle, and you don't want to have that haze and protein haze and all that in there. So, but yeah, let us know how it works out. About what ratios and how many pounds per gallon are you going with? What's going on, Kev? Good to see you, brother. Yeah. Bye, you brothers. You're gonna have to get with Richard and tell him to give it up with me, man. And and we'll get y'all in here. I need to get up with him. I need to send him a Facebook message. I'm slacking, but it's basically when y'all have time. I mean, I'm here every Saturday and Tuesday. Anytime y'all available, we can get y'all in here. I do want to talk to y'all about your distillery and see what he's been up to and how him and Craig been. What's going on, Irish? Good to see you, brother. I reckon y'all been pretty busy lately setting up shop. So, Adam, generally with the corn, you're gonna want. I don't know if you've done it or not. I haven't gotten a reply yet. I'll give you a minute or two. If not, I can kind of go over it a little bit if you want me to. Um, just got to gelatinize the corn, and that means cooking it at about 185 to 190 for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, until it thickens and gets gelled and releases all the starches. And yeah, Taco Tuesday for you, yeah, man. We had cheeseburgers tonight, fries. But yeah, so gelatinizing the corn, at 185, 90 degrees Fahrenheit for about 90 minutes, 2 hours, getting it gelled and getting all those starches released. Basically, the same thing we do when we use pectic enzymes or freeze to explode those cells. But we're doing the same thing with corn by heating it so that water gets to a certain, so the interior temperature and the moisture in the kernel gets to a certain point inside those cells, and it boils and it explodes, builds pressure and it explodes those cell walls the same way and releases all the starches. So that's what's going on in the gelatinization process. Using corn isn't common in Australia, usually molasses, right. Awesome. Well, we will get you going then. Usually about 2 to 2.5, somewhere in between there. You'll have to kind of adjust your recipe, to get the diastatic that you need with the conversion that you need. Hopefully, you have the high temp amylase, liquid high temp alpha amylase, and the liquid glucose amylase. Those really help a lot. Yeah, I know you can get them on Amazon. Phil Billy, let's see. North Georgia carries them, and my buddy Prohibition has them. I'm not sure if he's just selling through North Georgia now or exactly what. Firm Solutions, and Danville has them. And I'm pretty sure they'll ship anywhere if you want to pay the shipping. But I'd say maybe Amazon might be, I'm sure you got some Amazon warehouses down there, and they're probably some of your cheaper ways to get it there. But yeah, using the corn, cooking it up and gelatinizing it, I guess you all might have to write this down and do the conversion as far as centigrade to Fahrenheit, probably around what 80, 90 some centigrade. Let me see what 90 centigrade is. I'd say that's close to 190. Yeah, 90 centigrade's 194. So about, 88 to 90 Celsius to be about 190 Fahrenheit. And that should be plenty. 90 would get you in the 190. So that's plenty. You don't want to scorch it. That's the biggest thing. And you can steep it if you can keep the temperature up. So a lot of times people will, for example, if you got 20 pounds of grain and you're doing 10 gallons, that's 2 pounds per gallon, which is, sufficient. I go about 2.25, but somewhere between 2 and 2.5. You can float that depending on what you want your gravity to be. But once you get your boiling water, just pour maybe 7 out of 10 gallons into there and start stirring it up. Making sure your corn's cracked or ground medium to fine coarse. You don't want it real fine like a powder, but a good coarse grind, and stirring it in, holding that temperature. So if you can use a cooler or something, This is a steeping method, and it definitely helps prevent scorching. A lot of people, when they first do it, they don't stir it enough, and they go too high temperature, and they have a burner that kind of focuses on one spot, or they run it too hot, and it ends up scorching and ruining the corn, the run, and everything. Once it scorches, it's just not going to make good liquor. Trust me, I know. I've scorched many of my first few runs. But steeping method, if you can do it in a cooler, it'll hold that temperature. Do 7 out of the 10 gallons, and then every 15 minutes or so, just give it a half a gallon, at a time, and until you get the full term and keep that temperature at least above 185 Fahrenheit. Then you should be pretty good. It should gelatinize pretty well for you. Once you do that at 185, you can add that high temp liquid high temp alpha amylase. And once you do that, you'll immediately see it thin out. I recommend doing that just to help, make it more manageable and make it easier to work in your barley. Now, once you get down to 155 Fahrenheit, let me do the conversion of that. Is probably, 68 Celsius. So once you get around 68 Celsius, add your barley in, stir it in well, and let it rest. Do your rest there, and then let it cool on down. And then you can hold for your acidification rest and your protein rest if you want to do that. And then once it gets down to, now the glucoamylase, depending on where you source it, it'll have different temperatures that you add it. I've seen some that go in at 140. I've seen some that go in at 100, and pretty much yeast pitching temps. It really depends on the source of the glucoamylase. If you use a sufficient diastatic of malted barley, then you can cut that gluco in half. But adding that gluco really helps finish that beta glucanase, because it's a little bit better at debranching than the beta. So you'll get more monosaccharides and a little bit better fermentation, quicker fermentation too, as a result. But yeah, I agree. Can't beat that good corn liquor. Right. So you want it between what a normal crack would be. They say about 8 to 10 pieces per kernel. If you can get it cracked to that, would be about right. Sometimes the cracked is not even a whole kernel even busted, and sometimes it's just split in halves. But if you could divide a kernel by 8 and just imagine that size, if you can get it all ground to that consistency, a lot of people will sieve there. They'll run it through a screen, and anything that's fine, they'll just use to make, and a lot of people don't realize it, you can make good damn cornbread, right? It just use this fine stuff for making cornbread and use the coarser stuff for making your liquor. I know a lot of people that do that. I've done it as well, and it makes good cornbread. Especially some of these heirloom grains. A lot of people are like, wow, it's good liquor, but man, I had no idea it made such good cornbread, and some of the red corns and other corns, yeah, it makes good cornbread. So save your fines for that. I know what you meant. I think, yeah. Got a lilac wine. That sounds good. Sounds good, man. I mean, I hate sometimes you lose a lot of flavor when you distill. That's part of the distillation process, is taking, everything else and leaving something pure. And, distilling water, taking out the impurities and leaving just pure water. Distilling alcohol takes out a lot of stuff too, and leaves a lot of those good congeners and a lot of good things behind. But what kind of yeast did you use with it? All right, sounds good. So you're going to try to distill on the grain. That's another reason a lot of the people, kind of sieve theirs too, so they can use brew bags and distill on the grain without having to do a lot of sparging. Yeah, yeah, Jimmy Red makes great cornbread. Right. Oh yeah, I mean, you'll get different colors with the red, and it's not going to be your traditional yellow looking cornbread. No, no, I mean, it's whatever ratio you want to use is, I mean, if it's not malted, now malted wheat and regular wheat will give you kind of a little bit different flavor profiles, but no, I mean, it's just totally up to you what ratio you want to use. I mean, but using the Visco Seb or the Seb Flow, when you do get higher percentages of some of your adjunct grains, your wheat, your rye, your barleys, your oats, some of the gummies that we talk about. What is it, Visco Seb and Seb Flow? Using that seems to help a lot, according to Clint. I've not done it yet. I'm going to this summer. I'm going to do it all malt. I'm not doing all wheat and all barley just to do a single malt. The only time I've ever done a single grain was just corn. I've never done all rye or all wheat or all barley. But, any of those adjunct grains like that other than corn will get kind of gummy. But a lot of times if they're malted, they'll have a natural enzyme built in themselves to help break themselves down. That's part of the reason that they have these, specific amylases in them. So they can, if it's malted, it can help break it down. If it's not malted, getting some of that Visco Seb or Web Seb Flow would definitely help. That sounds pretty damn good. I've been drinking this. Well, I guess it doesn't say it on the label, but I'm gonna drink some of this Crystal Light raspberry lemonade, and man, I'm gonna have to try that in some shine. It's awful good. It's sugar free, so Ann can drink it. Okay, good. Yeah, I can get wheat pretty cheaply here too. Almost cheap, about as cheap as corn, really. But my farmer's not doing it this year. I think he's doing a different cover crop, so I'm gonna have to find somebody else. But they'll be on Facebook. That'll be well. Actually, it's getting close time, June, July. Hopefully, it'll be dry enough for them to cut it. But yeah, June, July is when the first one will come in. So it won't be long. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and have a look see on Facebook Marketplace, see what it says. I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to find on the PC than it is on my damn phone. Let's see what we got. Wheat straw, a lot of wheat straw. See a lot of poultry feed and bird feed. Oh, here we go. Feed wheat. Those are pure berries. $8 for 60-pound bag. That's me. Now let's see how far away he is. Lord have mercy. He's all the way on Western Kentucky. Son of a gun. He's 2 hours away. Shit. Damn, man. That's a good deal too. $8 for a 60-pound bag. He's in Indiana. Okay. I thought that was West Kentucky. So we got to find somebody closer. Yeah, my farmer's not doing wheat this year, and he's only about 35 minutes, maybe 45 somewhere. Well, not yet. I guess it is a little bit early, though. A little bit early. Towards the end of June, early July, we'll see more. We'll see more of that. Yeah, I want to try to do an all wheat vodka too. Compare it to my potato, and kind of do a potato at 190 and proof it down to 100, and then do the same with wheat and compare the two. Awesome. Yeah, I got to get my glass globe sent in. I got a broken globe in my 4-inch. Hopefully they'll replace it. I don't know if they will or not. We'll have to wait and see. If not, I'm going to have to try to buy one. I don't know. I certainly messed up by not opening up that package when I got it. I opened up the package, everything looked, snug and tight, and it's packaged very well. And I just set the box there all winter. I didn't run, any vodka. I didn't have any need for it. And then got this potato going. So let me get this column put together. And, of course, the very last globe that I get to, it's broken. And it's like, man, it was just a bag of glass with bubble wrap, bag of glass. And I'm like, man. So I sent him an email and got the automated responses. I hadn't really been able to call or talk to anybody yet. So I don't know if I should just send the whole damn thing back and eat the restock fee, or just see if they'll replace the globe, and I'll help pay for it, and I'll pay for it. It's my fault. I should have. I mean, I didn't break it. It's not my fault. It should have arrived here unbroken, and it didn't. The box has been sitting over by itself. Nothing been around it. So hopefully, if not, I'll have to pay half, get free shipping, something. But may end up just having to pay the restock fee and send the whole damn thing back. Yeah, it'll be fine. It's better to get whole corn. If it's aged like that, it's better just to buy whole corn and grind it yourself. Yeah, it's sitting in everything's sitting in the box here. I just started assembling it. Yeah, yeah, I hated seeing that. But yeah, getting whole corn is definitely, it'll stay fresher much longer than cracked. Once it cracks, it starts oxidizing and getting a little stale. So trying to find something that's got that husk protecting it, it'll protect it for much longer. You know, so try to buy some whole kernel and get you a grain meal. I know Roger Davison is selling his grain meal, and I think he's asking $100 for it. They're normally about 170. I'm not sure what his cost, but that's generally about the average price of them. So if anybody's interested, that'd be a pretty good deal. I haven't been used a whole lot. Yeah, I know he just got it a year or two ago and hadn't used it that much. Yeah, don't tell you much use it. I mean, they don't need to know. When you buy corn, it ain't corn. Most people are buying it for their cattle or their livestock. Some people take it home and grind it up and use it for cornmeal. Yeah, you can get a lot of good deals from them. Okay, so you're gonna keep one as wine. That's good, and then you can compare it. Because what in the past I've done is, I had pretty good wine, and I'm like, well, let's just go ahead and run it. And I run it, and it just, came through. It came through pretty. Took out a lot of the flavor, and it's like, man, that definitely made a better wine than Shine. And definitely was better. I'm trying to think of what that was. I've done it actually a few times, but one I really regretted. That's why a lot of times I'll just keep my wines. What you been up to, Cave Daddy? Did you go to popcorn? I missed it. It's on Mikey Frank's fault. He didn't come get me. Have another little sippy sip. Good stuff. Old Sandman makes pretty good stuff. I know he made some blackberry, man. It's really good. Blackberry brandy is very flavorful. It's really good. Yeah, that's what I was asking, man. Yeah. And hair in a biscuit. Reminds me of the other day, that cat y'all just heard comes running through the damn bedroom, jumping on top of everything, knocking shit over, acting crazy. Crazy. Just very, and we're like, damn, what's wrong with it, man? It's acting crazy, And I guess it'd gone to the litter box, and I guess it's been cleaning up her fur, and she might have got a beard hair and hair in it. And so she had a little dangling turd that was holding on by a hair. And it was bouncing around. And it was scaring the shit out of her, literally. And she was running all over the house, freaking out. She didn't know what was happening. Something getting her back here, and she little turd bounced around, hanging on by a hair. That was some funny shit. That was funny as hell. She didn't know what the hell was getting her. But she's like a 13-year-old cat. Thinks she's still a kitten. She's pretty young at heart and still chases her tail and plays. And she's pretty lively too. And unlike most cats, we put her food out. We'll put a whole bunch out, and she'll just eat what she wants and stays thin. She hadn't eaten herself fat like most cats do, and just eat everything you put out in front of them. Yeah, I heard about that, Scott. I didn't hear any of the evidence or any of the case, so I have to, can't really make comments till I know, what the evidence was, but sad situation either way, I never heard. Did you listen to the whole case? Did the other guy even have a weapon, or were they just fist fighting? Or I never heard anything about the other person having a weapon. All I heard was he had a knife, And I haven't heard anything about, like I said, though, I haven't heard anything about the case, so it's really hard for me to opine on without knowing more about it. I try not to do that. I know a lot of people these days, they'll hear one or two little bits of information and they'll go on about everything. And I was guilty of that too. I watched some of these videos and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that cop did that, and that cop needs to be put in jail. And then I see the body cam footage that shows the rest of the story and all the shit that happened before the video that I saw started. And it's like, oh, well, they asked for it. So I've made a fool of myself too many times to comment till I see the whole story. Right. So they do have video. I'm just curious if the other dude had a weapon or not. If they got in a fight or exactly what all happened, if they had some words and but if he just came in and had words and just pulled out a knife and stabbed him, he needs more than 35. Right. Did the boy have a weapon though? If Camelo came in and started, saying something, the boy pulled a knife out first, then that's kind of self-defense. But if the boy didn't have no weapon or nothing like that, then he probably should have got more than 35. So you can't just be getting in a fist fight and then pulling out a knife unless they're getting ready to give you grave and stomp you while you're down or something. Yeah. Well, sounds like me. You got lucky if you just got 17 to 35. Yeah. He was lucky he didn't get more. But, it just depends on where you go to court. And unfortunately, these days, it's like that guy that killed that gal on the subway. They should just fry that dude right on, as soon as they saw the video and knew they had him. Why even go take it to court? Just put him in the chair, throw the switch. Just maliciously murdered that guy all on video. People just sitting there recording it on their phones and shit, man. It makes me so sick. That Ukrainian girl. Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunately, a lot of places like that, they just slap them on the wrist and they get out and do shit like that again. But he'll have a little while to think about it. Hopefully they don't let him out on early. Shame though, man. It's a sign of the times. But, he was a basketball player and they'll probably welcome him right into the system there in prison. Yep. Sad. Hate to hear that shit. But unfortunately, we're going to see more of that, and it's going to be fewer and fewer it's going to be a lot more. Unfortunately, some people that aren't here legally, I'll just put it that way. Not talking about, most Mexicans or anybody like that, but we know the ones that like to use the knives and swords and shit. And, I'm just probably going to see a lot more of that happening. You about there. Right, right. Yeah, you have to kind of show there's something's threatening your life, other than just somebody swinging at you with a fist. If you're down and they come at you while you're down, then I think you have the right to defend. But yeah, you definitely need to be trained and be trained by somebody who knows the law and seen the laws. And unfortunately, it varies state by state, to how you get treated and oh, that's good to hear. So you getting enough rain, or are you having to water them? Yeah, definitely read the rules of your state. It varies state by state, what you can do, and some states there's a lot more um, leeway, like Florida, your castle doctrine, where you protecting your home and your auto, and some states don't give you that as much, and some states will bring you forth. Just don't be wearing a red MAGA hat when you do it, or else, man, they'll throw the book at you. Uh, yeah, I was thinking I had to water him. You have his soaker hose run out there? You would think that would be the way to do it. Come into court murdering somebody with a knife, maybe you should get the same treatment. But then so many people say it's just so inhumane. Well, I mean, yeah, that's why he needs to be taken out the same way, because he's the inhumane one that did it. But they always say, "Oh, there's some people that have been proven innocent after they were, proven guilty." DNA evidence, but if you got video evidence of somebody doing something and it's just cut and dry, them basically caught in the act, then don't even waste the taxpayers' dollars taking that shit to court, straight to the chair, or lethal injection, firing squad, however in the hell you want to do it, gallows. I don't care. I think we need more public display of what happens. It would be a better deterrent. The public hangings was a pretty good deterrent back in the day. All the town would come out and hang him, and you watch them struggle and fight for their life. And it's like, I better walk the line, better not do any stupid shit. That'll be me, But nowadays, where the judge just slap you on the wrist and get credit for time served and get off on good behavior and get half your sentence, in 8 years, he'd probably be out. What's going on, John? Yeah, his game's over. He is no longer a gamer. He'd be playing prison ball. No, you have to have a good reason, man. You have to. Yeah, you have to have a threat, something that's going to give you graven threat, of major injury or death. Like I said, if you're down and they're coming to stomp you or something like that, in most states, you can, because that's a lot of people been killed that way. Or, once you're down, if they can continue coming at you and you're staying down, then in a lot of states you can. Some states they'll say, no, you still couldn't prove it. Just make sure that if you're down there coming at you, that you don't get them in the back. And there's people there to prove your story. Yep, I agree, man. Yep. That's just crazy. There's just no excuse for it. And I've seen people. I saw a video. People fish down on the boat. And these people are like, you're on private property. No, this is a navigable waterway. I'm allowed to fish here. No, you're not shooting at them. Shooting at the boat, man. That's just crazy shit. Got them ready to feel. Oh hell. Yeah. I definitely don't understand a lot of gun laws because the only people that abide by gun laws are lawful, law abiding people. So criminals don't abide by gun laws. They're not going to pull out a gun and get ready to shoot. Oh shit! Wait a minute! I can't shoot this guy. Damn it! I'd be breaking a gun law if I do. Damn it! You're lucky I didn't murder you because it's them damn gun laws. I'd have murdered you if they didn't have that gun law, right? Not happening, right? This is stupid shit. And there's so many dumb people that think gun laws are going to stop shootings and killings. No, it just enables criminals and disables law-abiding people. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, they best leave me alone too. I generally pack. I'm traveling or going somewhere. I'm packing. Chud, I'm not familiar. I don't watch a lot of news anymore. Just gets me worked up. So who's Chud? You're having a shot. I might as well have another two. Y'all just sit there and laugh at my nose getting red, don't you? There's probably another little sight. Y'all sit there and watch his nose get red. Watch it. Make him drink another. It does. Good stuff. Chud the Builder in Tennessee. Let me Google that real quick. Oh, huh. Both men got in a fight, escalated into gunfire. Both men with gunshot wounds. Etherly jailed. Oh, rage baiter. Well, that's the FAFO. He sounds like he met FAFO. He found out what happens when you rage some people. I've not seen that. I've not seen him. Let's see. Maybe let me open it up here on Facebook. Let's see. So he uses a lot of racial slurs and gets people fired up, huh? Well, it's showing his picture. He don't look like he's raging baiting in there. Maybe they took his shit down. Let me see. Yeah, I've not heard about this. I don't try to. What he doing on mostly? The TikToker. That's probably why I ain't finding. I don't do TikTok. Instagram. Let's see if he's there. I ain't seen it. I probably shouldn't give him the view. Yeah. Oh, I remember Lancelot Link, Sinker Chimp. I had a buddy of mine named Charles Lincoln Ritz, and we called him Link. And we called him Lancelot Link. He didn't like that. Kind of stuck, though. So he didn't mind. He's a buddy of mine. We played football together. He's a year or two, a few years behind me. His dad was an assistant coach, and a trainer, pretty much a doctor. He went to, I think he went to Marshall after he left our high school. He went to Marshall and was their trainer. Good dude, though. He's out in Arizona, probably running an insurance company out there. I think he went out there with United. I'm not sure if he's United or Humana. I know he's with one or the other. But yeah, we used to watch it. Oh, he was the only one with a weapon? Interesting. Yeah, he FAFO'd, didn't he? Well, did the person turn it on him and shoot him, or did he shoot himself and try to blame the other person? I guess the article I read, I just kind of read through it real quick, is both were wounded in the altercation. I thought maybe both had a gun. It said a gunfight, which usually it takes two to have a gunfight, I would think. But oh yeah, I watched all that. Uh-oh. I was just thinking it when I saw that link. Hold on a minute. All right, nothing bad. Now, yeah, links. Let me see. I might be a little bit early. Let me wait a few more minutes. I don't want to get too early. Not think I'm a bot. Shut me down. Soft wheat bran. That's already been broken up. Several bags. Free. Looks like it's been sitting there a while though, man. Got cobwebs all over it. Bran. Been milled down. Soft wheat bran. Probably still be decent if it wasn't moldy. I don't know. Might have some damn bugs in it. Looks like it's been sitting a while though. Damn, let me see if there's any. Right. $100 for how much? Oh, that's dirty too. Oh, that's got some shit mixed in it as well. I don't want nothing to do with that. $100 for what? I don't see that much. A little bit early, I guess. Bit early. We'll wait till late June, mid-July. There'll be plenty of wheat. Watched a video today from our distillery. Said 5.5 bushel cost, 3.5 bushel selling price. Yeah. Yeah. That's why a lot of them, man, they'll fill your totes up. They'll fill your truck bed up. If they can just make a buck on it and pay for their fuel and put a little food on the table, man, they'll load you up with corn. But yeah, it's a shame. They should. Yeah. Yeah, probably not much, but get some flavor. Yeah, it is. I definitely, John, I'd start with the Yellow Dent. Yellow Dent makes perfectly good whiskey. Pappy Van Winkle, some of the best whiskeys that were ever made were made with Yellow Dent corn. They are pretty strict on moisture content when they buy it. Very strict on that. They're not going to buy anything with above 16%. But that's just because they don't. When they store it, they don't want mold issues and things of that nature. But most of your best whiskeys were made with Yellow Dent. Heirloom corn can make some great stuff. I know Phil's got some pretty cheap, and a few other people that sell grain. You can get it reasonably, but $3 a pound versus pennies on the pound when you get 50-pound bags of that Yellow Dent, especially for beginning. Once you get seasoned and few runs under your belt, then you can start going with some of the heirloom grains to get some unique flavors and that. But I would definitely try to cut my teeth on something a little cheaper, and until I got my system down, got a pattern built, and then I would probably graduate to some more expensive heirlooms. Or if you got room, grow some. You can buy a big old bag of it, a few bucks a pound, and then plant. Was he nipple? Or did he try to nip a lot? Yeah. Yeah, it's a big difference, and just get it fresh. Get the fresh, or if you can find a farmer, that's even better. At a farmer, you get better prices and probably fresher corn and probably a better grade. and getting it directly from them, it benefits them. You're not, because Tractor Supply is probably, giving them cost, getting it at cost just so they can stay alive. And if you go and give them $1 over their cost, yeah, they'll load you down with it, man. They'll be happy that you're there. And yeah, the brand, actually, brand's a good nutrient. It's a good yeast nutrient as well, and it's pretty good for flavor. But yeah, there's a lot of your cereals that'll have uh, malted grains in it, and malt itself. Yeah. Well, it's temperature and yeast, and there's a lot of things that play into it. Generally, though, in the summer when it gets a little bit warmer, and depending on the yeast you use, data yeast, it likes a little bit warmer. Um, those warm temps in the 80s, and man, that thing they'll work off in 3 to 5 days. Everything's just right. Yeah, that's cool. I'm not the biggest fan of rye. I'm kind of the same way. I'm kind of coming around where it doesn't bother me like it used to in the past though. All the high rye green bottles and stuff I never really liked much at all. But now I can appreciate it a little bit more, but still I like the sweet wheat, the wheated bourbons. With the biter, yeah. Uh, yeah, I had a chow, man. It was a nipper and a biter. It was just trying to be playful, but it didn't know. Man, those little needle teeth, man. It had some needle teeth on it too, man. They sharp as hell. It was appropriately named Cujo. it was a, it was a killer. Yeah, got cool. Well, it's fine. Yeah. Well, the longer it takes, the pH will drop, but as long as it doesn't get, below three, the low threes, it'll be fine. 3.2 and getting into the twos, then you kind of, you know, begin to worry about it a little bit. But usually grains don't take that long. And when they do, you do get into the, mid threes, maybe sometimes, but I wouldn't worry about it. I'd let it finish on out. I know a lot of people hear us talk about 5.3 starting pH, and they feel, and I want to get this out there, they feel that they have to keep it at 5.3, and that they're constantly putting baking soda in there to try to keep it up, and don't do that. It's natural for your fermentation to become acidic. There's lots of organic acids that are created during the fermentation process, and that's a needed thing. That adds some of your esters and things to your mash to give it a unique flavor, and some of your better flavors, your florals and some of your notes. So don't don't fight the pH. Only start dealing with it when it becomes an issue that it's going to stress your yeast, and then it's more beneficial to add the pickling lime instead of baking soda. But it's more beneficial to add that than to have your yeast stress from very low acidic or high acidic levels, very low pH. Yeah, I had a husky shepherd that would try to talk to me. Yeah. Well, if it gets to the low threes, 3.2 or below, that's about, you know, I guess the lower levels of what wine yeast. If it's like if you're using bread yeast, yeah, you definitely probably should use some baking soda, and that's one of the things about using bread yeast. It's perfectly fine if you don't mind the bread flavor. A lot of people like the flavor that it imparts. I used it forever and ever and ever, and got kind of used to it. But when I started using other yeasts and I started seeing the flavor profile change to some floral and some unique flavors that I wasn't getting before, then I, kind of opened my eyes that yeast is important. So I did more research and experimented with different yeast and, started doing wines and stuff and really learned more about yeast and the fermentation process and the esterification, the esters and how, in some of those heads or some of the, where a lot of the flavor can come from. So, and also we talk about, in the, using the sediments, for the next distillation, call it flocculence, yeast bed, lees, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot of, acidic compounds in there that definitely help your profile, and sometimes, for us using pot stills and using, gas and electric like we do, can't really take advantage of getting some of those lees into our boilers because it'll scorch or it'll get on our burners and scorch out. But those that can, have jacketed, systems or heat with steam, something like that, um, they can take advantage of distilling, on the grain and with those lees and everything in there. Some people will say, I taste too yeasty, but after it ages and stuff, it can definitely create some interesting flavors. So, but it's really good to for sour mashing. That's what gives you a lot of your flavor in the sour mash is carrying that acid and those organic acids forward to the next fermentation and carrying that flavor forward where you didn't have it that early in the prior fermentation and building a flavor profile. But it's good for aging for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It definitely works. It works better. It's doesn't have the sodium. The sodium kind of. I mean, both of them create a lot of oxygenation in the mash. Will what that will create. Your put your yeast back into a breeding cycle. So they'll take a little break, breed, and sometimes overbreed. And during the stressful part of the fermentation where they really shouldn't be breeding and overbreed and breed into an acidic environment and other things like that that cause more stress. Um, but using the calcium hydroxide versus the sodium bicarbonate, it's definitely better because you don't have to deal with that sodium. Wild yeast, well, it can be good or it can be horrible. More often than not, it's not that great. But if you can, kind of isolate a wild yeast and acclimate it and, get it used to the temperatures that you want to ferment at and get it used to the alcohol levels that you want to distill at, it can start developing a tolerance, so you just kind of ease it into a low gravity. And then next time you kind of propagate it, get a little higher gravity, next time a little higher, and you just try to acclimate it. And we're going to get some people on here and do some in-depth talks about propagation of yeast and how to acclimate it and propagate it and use it. Generally, wild yeast will work off really quickly, and sometimes more often than not, you'll need something to help finish because it'll get to a certain point where it just can't handle the alcohol and you'll need something to finish it off because it just got to 8% and that's all it could handle, 12%, whatever, and that's all it could handle. And you have a higher alcohol levels or acidic levels, you got to acclimate it for the pH too. So there's certain things that you really need to that you can uh, train these wild yeast to be really really good, but generally speaking, they finish off fast, and some will give you good flavors, some not so good, and a lot of people will, brew in brewing. A lot of times you'll use high temperatures to get rid of those, pasteurized to get rid of a lot of them. I know in brandy making, a lot of people will use the potassium metabisulfate to kill them all off because they just don't want them in their wines. Winemakers hate it. They don't want anything to do with it. They want complete control because you're drinking the must. You're drinking what mash, wash, must for wine, and so it takes a lot more toll when you have those things versus a distillation. You can get rid of a lot of that badness, but in a wine they want to control everything and they want it to be exactly like that last bottle. They want consistency, and having those in there, they don't want to heat up their fruits to 160, 80 degrees to kill everything off, because that kills a lot of their flavonols and polyphenols and some of their flavonoids and things like that. They give the wine its character, and it increases the oxidation. So they really don't want to do that. So they'll just use potassium metabisulfate to, kill it chemically. And that, can be gassed off, and not leave, too much flavor behind. Definitely don't want to do too much of the Camden tablets, same thing. But that'll help kill a lot of those wild yeasts off. But if you can isolate some interesting yeasts and use them, experiment with them, and bring them along and acclimate them and train them, they can be quite great, and you can create a unique thing you can call your own, right? But for the most part, starting out, I would definitely try to stick to um, purchased yeasts. And if you get some expensive yeast, you're going to have to learn how to propagate as well. Some of these Quebec yeasts and some of these expensive yeasts, they can get up there. Some of the ones most of us use are like $20-$30 for a 500 gram brick, whereas some of the Quebecies, that's $300 or more. So yeah, when it gets to those and you're doing much with them, you definitely want to be able to propagate them and continuously use them, right? So then it definitely helps. Wild geese. Let's put some wild geese. We'll call it gray goose, man. We'll put them wild geese in there. I wonder if that's what they do in that gray goose vodka. Well, when you cook your grains up, though, you're going to kill a lot of that. So, if with beers, maybe not so much, because you're not going to get really. How hot do you get with your beers? 155, 60. Some of that stuff, that's probably going to kill off a lot of it. And I'd say a lot of those yeast aren't really going to be able to survive that kind of temp. But on the when we started 180, we're definitely killing everything on the corn, and when it gets to 155, when we add the malted barley, it's gonna take care of most of it. Um, but that's also how you get lactobacillus and a lot of other issues as well. But what's going on, Justin? Good to see you. What's going on down there in Tejas? I know what you're talking about, brother. I have drank some of that Grey Goose. That's pretty good stuff. I can't believe you didn't tell him any jokes. Yeah. He's trying to get you in trouble, ain't he? Oh yeah, the blue yeast is very and or the yeah, the blue yeast is very expensive. And I would definitely, try to salvage some of that for sure. And some of those Quebec yeast get very expensive. Yeah, that blue yeast is good stuff too. That's definitely what you want to use. Yeah, you better slow down now. We want to keep your end. You got everything in moderation. Of course, when I go to these damn festivals, I ain't drinking in moderation. I get pretty hammered. Uh, yeah, it definitely is. But if you're using the Quebec, definitely you want to definitely want to preserve that and propagate it and restore it. Just getting the grain bed at the very bottom, the lees that's in the bottom there, flocculence, yeast bed, same. And what I do is just when I get all that, if you want to press it out and try to get the last bit out, you can. I generally just pour some distilled water, or some spring water, or whatever I got on hand in there. Try not to use tap. The chlorine is not good, and it might, kill some of the live yeast that you've got maintained in there. But you just kind of rinse it out to lower the proof, right, and to get a lot of the alcohol out of it. And then I pour it through a screen, one of those just kitchen screens, to get any organic, bits of fruit or grain out of there that I can, and then save it. Just save it in the refrigerator, and you'll be able to use it again and again and again. And it's got live yeast in there, and it'll also have nutrients. And every once in a while, give it a pinch of sugar to help keep it fed and keep them breeding. It'll you'll be able to keep it alive. Been distilling with a keg still. Awesome, awesome. I think I got to the point where I want to start distilling over electric instead of propane. Pros and cons to both. Well, now if you're talking about a stove or electric hot plate, make sure it's one of those that you just adjust the temperature to, and it doesn't cut on and off to maintain temperature. So basically, it'll just get redder and redder and redder as you turn it up, and it'll get cooler as you turn it down, but it doesn't shut off and on to maintain temperature. That you don't want it to shut off and on and off and on. You just want it to adjust and be a constant temperature, for distilling. If you have it, I've got a stove I've got two Frigidaire stoves. One's like 25 years old. It was the one I was in here when I moved in, and it stays on perfectly. When you dial it up, it'll stay on from like medium high to all the way to high, which is what you'll be using. And it just stays on. It doesn't cut on and off at all. And that's great. I got another Frigidaire. It's probably 8 years old and stainless, and it'll cut on and off, on and off, and on and off. It sucks. It's just hard to make cuts when it cuts on and off like that a lot. And it kind of, it makes it difficult to get better cuts. So, but if you're talking about like an electrical element, putting a ferrule in the side of it and using an electric element, make sure that you use an SCR instead of a PID. Same process. A PID will cut on and off to maintain temperature, where an SCR is more like a rheostat. It just sends more power to the element, and it's a constant power to that element. It doesn't fluctuate to maintain temperature. It just gets a certain amount of amps fed to it, and it'll maintain that exact temperature until you turn it up or down. So either way, you'll definitely prefer the electric over the gas. It's a lot cheaper for sure. Yeah, propane tends to, especially depends on your burner. If you have the 10-inch banjo burner that's pretty big and round, and it distributes heat and the small little blue flames evenly around the bottom, not so bad. But if you have like the turkey fryer that has like the single burner that focuses on one little point like that big on the bottom of the pot, it can be, a scorcher for sure. Great for boiling water. Probably one of the best things in the world for boiling water. It gets hot quick, and I don't know if it's any better than the banjos. Those things get up 300,000 BTUs, but it will. It's great for boiling water, but not so good for cooking. But that's why a lot of people just boil water and steep these days, so they don't have to worry about scorching, and using the high temp and the liquid glucose really helps a lot, with the conversions. It's a lot more forgiving than the old powders or using the malted grains. So, but yeah, it's definitely going to be. I only know one person that went back to propane from electric, that started out in propane and then went to electric and then decided they like propane better. Me, I started out with wood fire and did propane from there, and didn't do electric for a long, long time because I was out in the woods. But when I was able to start doing it inside, I tried it. I did some on a gas stove that worked out real well, and then and now sometimes I'll use that old stove. It works out real well. I kept it. Yeah, yeah, and it becomes like Clint said. You get in the middle of a run, you don't have that extra tank, it'll run out, and it's like, man, then you have to go back get it and start all over again and run and bring it back up to temp, and it's expensive and it becomes a pain in the ass. Yeah, you got to drink to make him feel like he's doing something, right? He's earning his pay. He's going on, Brian. Good to see you, brother. Oh man, you fine as hell, brother. You better hope they don't see that. Well, you can use a couple of 120s. Just use extension cord, run it to two different circuits. That way you don't overload one circuit. But yeah, I would think 3,000. I don't know how many amps that would be. That's going to be probably going to be more than 20. I'm thinking no. Yeah, 25 amps at 120. And most people don't have 10.2 for 25 to 30 amps. Most are 12.2 or 14.2, and the 12.2 will handle 20 amps, and the 14.2 15. Um, so I would say a couple of 25s, but if you do the 3,000 watt, that's going to be pushing it. And if you have a 20 amp breaker, which most likely at 120, you're not going to be able to crank it all the way up, but it could be fine. To get a 3,000 and just go 80, 85%. Just look at your amp meter, have an amp meter on there so you know how many amps you're pulling, make sure nothing else on that branch of the circuit, and then you should be able to be pretty good. That's why I've got a 9,000, and I'm going to definitely go to 240 on that. But I figure if I got sized up like that, I'd be able to run it at 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever. And as long as my wire could handle it, I'd have a lot more flexibility in what temperature I ran, and I could boil water real quick at higher amps and then run it lower. Yeah, it'll just take longer, but it'll get you there. And that's what I was getting ready to say. I've seen some people now. If you do that, make sure that you've got a shroud, of course, block. There's a lot of heat coming off that propane up the sides. So put you a shroud or something there to block the heat coming up away from your wire. And I know several people that are stuck use the 120, and they have a shroud and use the gas as well. Yeah. Yeah, Jason, that's a good job. Jason and Philbilly, the ones you want to talk to with those. What's going on, Richard? How you doing, brother? That's fine. That's fine. Good to see you here. Hope Charlene, y'all doing good. Did y'all make it to popcorn this weekend? Yeah, he does. He does. I was going to suggest definitely watch some of those videos. It's definitely the way to go. You know, it's I'm slowly working myself in there. I'm going to go up and me, him, and Wes are going to put together my controller for that 9,000 watt monster I got. But you know, I'm going to use it a lot for boiling water too. I got a big pot I might use it in as well. So I might need two in that big pot. Did you work? Yeah. Yes, it sucks having work, man. I tell you. Gotta do it though, brother. I guess we'll see Maggie though. That's good to hear you doing well, brother. Oh, Hellbilly being quiet too. I know you made the Maggie, didn't you? I'm pretty sure. No, a lot of us, a lot of them are. You know, I'm in Kentucky, a lot of Tennessee, we get a lot of Ohio, a lot of Central Appalachia. But man, we get people from all over the world, man. Australia, Ireland, England, Canada, you know, South America, Papua New Guinea. I mean, we've had people from all over. It's the beauty of the internet, you know, and something about distilling, you know, it's no matter where you go, there's people distilling, making beer, wine, and whiskey and unique distillates in, you know, whatever area they're in. And I like talking to a lot of people from, you know, other areas of the world to find out what they do and what plants and what grains and their methodologies and stuff. I find that very interesting for me. I thought I saw you there in a picture. I wish I'd have made it. But that's something that I'm learning more about that I didn't know about. And while I like watching a lot of Alan Bishop's videos and stuff, talking about a lot of the way things were done, you know, hundreds of years ago, and also a lot about other indigenous people of other places in the world and how they, you know, create distillates, and it's something very interesting for me now. So, been learning a little bit about all that. It's something new. I hope so. Yeah, that's one of my faves for sure. Probably my favorite. You know, I like Beattyville's very laid back. You know, it's a lot of fun and it's fairly close by, very close by. So it's enjoyable. I can go that, go home and sleep in my bed and go back. So I really like that, of course. So I'm sure a lot of the people that live close to Maggie and close to Wilmington, you know, they love that because they can just go there and sleep and or party and then go home and sleep. You know, but yeah, it's a good time. But I definitely I'll have to make popcorn next year or year after. I've got to try to go. I've not been to it yet. Um, but were there a lot of people there? You went Friday. Yeah, we're getting it too, brother. We got flash flood warnings today at about 10:30 this morning. What's going on, Greg? I got friends moving to Mississippi. It's a felony to make shine. Hard to believe, to say at least. Yeah, it's federally, it's illegal everywhere still. A lot of people talk about the new, we can distill at home now. The Supreme Court said we can distill at home. And I've seen people that advertising their book for sale, and they're saying, "Oh, now that you can distill at home, you read my book." They obviously should have done. Hopefully, they did more research writing the book than they did citing the law, because that's not what the law says at all. The law, the Supreme Court decision talking about distilling at home, was for licensed distillers. See, in the past, a licensed distillery could not distill in their own home. They still had to distill in a business place. If they were doing it on their property, it had to be separate from the home in a storage building or something, that meant the state code. And different states have different codes and restrictions and doors. John Benz can tell you all about the door has to be here and not there, and it has to be a door between, where you mash and where you distill, and all these other regulations, and it's unique to each state. Excuse me. But so it's not federally legal to distill in the home if you're not licensed still. So that was only licensed people. The argument was that the federal argument was that they couldn't tell how much somebody was distilling at home, so they weren't going to be aware if they were paying their fair taxes. It'd be harder for them to go into the home and see how much they were distilling and check their record keepings and stuff, because it would be considered a home instead of a business, and you have to have a warrant to go in there versus a business that's open public and has to be open for OSHA and other people, whereas the home doesn't. And so there was a lot of, sticky situations, but the government countered, and, the Supreme Court countered and said, well, are we going to make all home businesses illegal then? Because any home business can do that. Just because it's run out of the home doesn't mean that they're evading taxes. And it's all about taxes. And so they made it, unconstitutional to say that you could not legally distill at home if you had a license, but it still requires that license to distill at home. So if you've got in certain states like Missouri that says that you can distill at home, it's still federally illegal. But if you get that, federal license, which is fairly easy to get, and you have to pay, of course, but you can get that federal license and then you can distill at home. And as long as you're not selling anything, which Missouri law would say that you can't sell it, you have to make it within your home, and it's only for personal consumption or for a party, but you technically can't sell it or charge admission to the party or anything like that, then that would be. But don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody else on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, or anywhere else. Talk to an attorney before you make any kind of decisions on that, because it is federally illegal to distill at home if you don't have a license everywhere. And kind of like marijuana, marijuana was federally illegal, still is. But we've got states that have it recreational that you can go buy to the store, go figure, so it becomes a question of, is the federal government going to push that? And obviously, that's something they're not. Hopefully distilling follows the same path. And, unless you're doing a bunch, maybe they're just going to overlook it. Certain states have alcohol law enforcement, ALE agents. That's all they do is police alcohol. So they're going to do their jobs, right? So in those states, you're going to be more likely to run into trouble than states that don't have it and don't fool with it. And, it would just be a job for the sheriffs or the state police or local law enforcement. And they just, a lot of times, they don't have time for that shit. They got people cooking meth. They got people, dealing fentanyl, killing people. And they got people killing people with knives and basketball players and all that shit. They got so much more to worry about. So a lot of times they'll overlook it unless you just put it in their face. So, it's kind of a, take your chances and, hopefully you don't get caught. And some places it's a class B misdemeanor. Some places it's a felony, depends maybe on the amount that you have. So, and the attorney that you've got arguing, I'm sure it helps a lot. So, yeah. So be careful. Well, you can graduate your still, right? So if you have 10 gallons and you've got, count your jars, right? You've got 2 gallons that's come off. Everything that comes off gets condensed and back into a liquid. So if you started out with 10 gallons and your element is halfway at 5, once you get to about 4 gallons of distillate coming off, which you probably won't unless you run way down into your tails, you're probably not going to have that issue. So definitely want to locate that element, maybe off the bottom for sure. You don't want anything settling down and getting close to it, but there's not going to be a lot of sediment hopefully here in your still anyway. So closer to the bottom, that way it doesn't become a problem. But if you've got like 8 gallons in a 10-gallon still, you got 8 gallons, and your uh, element is at the 3-gallon mark. So you've got 2 gallons coming off that. You still got 6 gallons of you know back set in there, right? So it's not going to be an issue. So you just have to gauge how much is coming out, and don't allow it to get below that level. So if you start at 8, and once you get 4 off, then you got about a gallon above that element, and it's time to slow down. On running those tails out. So be careful running the tails out. And if you want to throw it on the stove to finish the tails out and turn the element off, and if you use, a lot of people will set it on their stove and plug it into their stove plug. And if you do that, you can unplug your element, plug your stove in, and finish it off with your stove if you want to, right? If you got a flat bottom. If you got a keg, you're not going to be able to do that, though. You might have to use propane to finish it off. Yeah, we stream through YouTube and Facebook, but you'll see all the comments on the screen here. But on the right side, you'll only see comments from that platform. So if you're on YouTube, you won't see the Facebook. That's why I have it here on the screen so everybody can see both different platforms. Yeah, we stream. I stream to Facebook, 3 different Facebook platforms, and 2 on YouTube. And then, but the militia itself, they'll stream to Kick and Twitch. And another one, I'm not sure, I can't remember which other one, but I don't do it to those, because basically all I was getting out of there were trolls and just more trouble, and I was having trouble, deleting comments and stuff like that from it, and adminning it, so wasn't worth it. So but I do stream to 3 different YouTube channels, and I share the stream to a lot of different groups. But I stream platform to 3 channels: Philbilly Moonshine, and Distilling 101, my podcast page, and then the Moonshine Militia podcast network. And then on YouTube, of course, down on the bottom, you can see that we go to Philbilly Moonshine and the Moonshine Militia on YouTube. I guess I should put the DIY or Distilling 101 podcast on there. I need to get more people on that podcast page. I mean, I don't do anything except just stream the videos to it. It's not for chat or anything like that and questions. We deal with that at the DIY Shine and Steel Building group page. But I definitely need to get more people in the DIY, or I'm sorry, the Distilling 101 podcast page. So I get more. I'm thinking I might be able to share more once I get a lot more people in there. So I'll put that up there so people can go there and join. And you just have to like it. It's not something that you join. You just follow, like, and follow. And if you can, I would definitely appreciate it. And I'll go ahead and put that link in there now. I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't do that hardly ever. But if you can go there and follow and like it, I would definitely appreciate it. But again, it's not a place for posting and asking a lot of questions and stuff, but it is a place where you'll see all our videos going back for a while. And Um, it'll help me hopefully share to more people at a time. I don't know. Hopefully I can get that above 500. I think that's the cutoff, and then they give you a little bit more leeway. I'm glad you mentioned that. But yeah, just watch. Hopefully you can see it. I've been talking to StreamYard, is who we use for streaming, and I'm trying to get it to where it'll take up half the page over there on the left. I'd like for it to cut right underneath live. This is about the biggest we can get it, so you can just see like 2 or 3 comments at a time as they scroll. So you got to be up on it a lot quicker than I'm able to keep up with it. But yeah. Yeah, I do too. I really enjoy it. And looking at their equipment as well, some of the ingenuity they come through, and seeing some of them using clay pots that they fire and kiln in their own little ovens, and they they made the Boca Cob long before the guy here invented it. They were using it in some of these tribe places for a long, long time, except it was just, it was a crude piece of metal cone and a cane that was cut out that the drip caught it, and it came out at about 180, 90 some proof. So they're making real high proof doing it. So, he says he invented it, but he basically just kind of mocked what they did on a smaller scale. But yeah, it's very interesting to see all the different fruits and vegetables and methodologies that they use. No, not federally. It's still going to be illegal. Ohio, let me check the Ohio laws. I haven't. I don't think so. Yeah, it's still illegal under Ohio and federal law. There is some state level efforts to legalize it, but yeah, it's still federally illegal. Ohio Revised Code allows for personal beer and winemaking. It makes no exception for distilling, and that's Ohio Revised Code 4.301.01. So it's still legal. In Missouri, you can. West Virginia, you can. There is ongoing lawsuits though to challenge it. So it's there is a lot in a lot of places, and that's why I said it's going to be a lot like marijuana. It's going to be state by state by state until eventually the states are just going to say yes you can. Federally they're going to say no you can't. But like marijuana, there's just not the enforcement. I mean, you can go in Ohio now and get recreational marijuana. You can go to a store and buy it, no questions asked, show your ID that you're 21, get it and go. I guess you can only get so much per person at a time. I'm not sure what all those are, but yeah, so it's recreationally legally. You can get it at a 7 or at dispensaries and other stores, but it's still federally illegal. So it's, and I don't think that's a very good climate for America, to be in. I think that gives people the false sense of security and breaking certain laws. They go, well, you can do it in other states. Well, what do you mean? I can buy it legally. So why are you arresting me? DEA man. So it's gives you a false sense of security because you think it's legal because you're able to buy it at the store. But if the feds want to get you, they still can, which is kind of, it's crazy. We've never had that. I've been on this world for 63 years, and that's never been like that. I can't go back and think of anything federally illegal that wasn't illegal in the states too, right? And then the state said, oh well, we're going to allow it regardless of what you say. I think marijuana was the first thing really that they well, I guess guns, trying to, but they got that slapped back at them pretty quick. There's a lot of gun lobbies out there that won't allow for that. That's constitutionally protected right, whereas there's nothing in the Constitution about distilling, right? So, but I still argue that's part of your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So, I think that should be the main argument. If tax is their only issue, how is making my own liquor avoiding any tax if I'm doing it for myself? That's no different than me avoiding going to the store and buying tomatoes, and paying the tax on those. I'm growing my own tomatoes. So I'm avoiding a tax there too. Does that make me a criminal? No. So I just don't understand, if it's just about tax, as long as you're not selling it, not an issue. Shouldn't be. But hopefully we can get all that clarified in the court systems and get it changed. But there are some states like Missouri that are very lenient. 100 gallons per person per year. That's 2 big barrels, man. That's a lot, per person, up to 2 per household. So if you got two 21-year-old people in the household that can legally drink and distill, or can legally drink, that aren't under some kind of order from a judge, then you can do 200 gallons, man. That's 4 big barrels of liquor a year that you can produce. And I don't think it says anything about how much you can have in possession. I think it's just limits how much you can make per year. So if you can document that you filled, those 4 barrels every year, in 4 years, you could have, some 4-year-old in 1 barrel, but you could have 16 barrels sitting in your garage, right? Man, that's a lot of booze, man. I mean, that's awesome. Hell, if I lived there, I'd be barreling that shit up, man. But yeah, don't take my word for it though. Definitely read. And I go to where the laws are and look at the statutes. So I go to the government website and do my research there. Don't research Reddit and YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. Don't listen to anybody. Go to the .gov website and get your information from there, or from an attorney who does the same. Yeah, you bet it. They're going to get too much water. Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy, isn't it, Clint? That's a lot of booze, man. I'd love to have 4 barrels a year. Yeah, we were talking about that. We were talking about that the other day, and I made some posts in the militia and on the DIY Shining Stuff page, DIY Shining Steel Building page. Used to be Shining Stuff. We changed the name a little bit more descript, but yeah, it'd be very advantageous. Right now, they're allowing free entry, so you can join it for free. There is paid versions of membership, but I think you should definitely take advantage of the free membership. If you go to the DIY Shining Steel Building page, scroll down a little bit, you'll find that link. It's on the militia page. Scroll down, you can find the link there as well. But they're allowing free membership right now, and definitely should take advantage of it. I'm glad you reminded me I need to do the same, because one thing that people don't realize is if the Hobby Distillers Association brings suit and fights for your right to distill in a certain state or congressional district, or I'm sorry, court district, and they win in that district, then as a member of that association that brought that case, you get the ability to do it, but not everybody else does until it goes before the Supreme Court or gets, educated, I guess, to where it applies to all, right? So definitely, and being a member of it too would be great. So you can, you know, have some discussions and you can talk and get a little bit more in depth like we get here, and talk about distilling and stuff, and meet some friends and maybe some festivals and stuff listed there, and group discussions. And I'm sure they've got some trade shows and stuff where they go and you can go and get some stuff. Yeah, you in there, Chris. Yeah, give old Santa a gift. Yeah, I think it'll help me share things a lot better if we have over. I think we're at 300 and some right now. I think 410 right now. So if we get it over 500, it will definitely it'll definitely help us. Hopefully on the sharing and stuff, and it puts you in a different category on Facebook. Um, so you become more of a next level, and then they're more lenient with you. So hopefully it'll allow me to get more shares coming from that group. And I'm going to use that in my argument. I mean, I got over 500 now. That's one of your limits. So yeah, and it's not just for drinking. It's like you say, it's for medicine, it's for tinctures, it's for sanitizers. There's a lot of things that you can use. No, he didn't invent that. He came up with it in a column, in a small column. But he basically took their technology and miniaturized it and put it in a column, which is great. And I'm not knocking the dude at all. It was awesome. It was great, and people get that high proof. It's a little slow, but you can put that on a keg and crank out 190 proof plus all day, and it's awesome for vodka makers. It's great, but yeah, it's old tech. They've been doing it for a long time, and it's so interesting watching them take that bamboo and that little bamboo and make a little spoon for that drip to catch and come out that end of that bamboo. They've been doing that for 1,000 years there. Yeah, they are slow as hell. They are. Yeah, it is. It's a craft. It's a craft and a hobby. And one of the arguments is, it, restricting people from doing it in their homes and doing it as a hobby is restricting distilling innovation. It's cutting back on creativity of new distillates that come out, and people inventing and coming up with new ways of doing things. It's inhibiting it. First grain ingredients, just ask your questions, Kyle. I would definitely, um, from doing the beer, a lot of the stuff you buy probably from the beer stores. You can get the same barley, and rye. I'm not sure, how much of the different adjunct grains you differently use the wheat and the barley. I'm not so much sure how much rye would actually go into a beer, but you can get a lot of this stuff from farmers, and as long as it's alone and not pelletized and a lot of supplemental minerals and other things geared towards nutrition for the animals. Wheat berry is wheat berry, right? It doesn't matter if it's in a chicken feed bag or a rice bag, it's a wheat berry, right? So you can get a lot better deals on stuff like that. If you don't mind malting your own, you can get some really good deals and malt your own stuff and get creative. But one, and what we talked about a little bit earlier, is one of the things new to beer makers is corn, and that's something that and you won't be using hops anymore, so it'll be a lot cheaper. But corn, using corn, whereas a lot of beer makers start at low temperatures and work up with rest and protein rest and um, saccharification rest and all those. With corn, you start at high temperature and work back. You can do both mashes separately and combine them once you're done if you feel comfortable doing that. That's fine as well, but you're not going to get the diastatic use if you do that, unless you just add it to the corn when it's 155 degrees, when you need to add your malted barley and malted grains. I do have a chart here, and this chart's also in the files section of the DIY Shine and Steel Building in the militia. Man, it's slow. Let me open that up for you, and a lot of these temperatures, and you'll be familiar with, because it's the same temperatures that you add stuff when you're making your beers. So, but here's a chart. Let me hide the chat there and let me get rid of that. But this is, it'll show all the different malts, regular barley versus malted barley, temperatures to add, your rye, your wheat. And you want to try to add it in the green section if you can, like the wheat, you'll want to add it at 150, your barley at about 152, 55. Your rye doesn't fall into that, but if you do add it in, that tends to get a little gummier. But oats kind of at the bottom. But if you can add any of your grains in that red zone other than the corn, the corn you're going to cook at 185 to 200 degrees, 195, 185, 95 is a good safe temperature. You don't want to scorch it, of course. And you're going to do that for 90 minutes to 2 hours. And that'll gelatinize the corn. So basically your corn, the cells in it, they get so hot, they build up pressure and they bust, and then they release all the starch. So they get, kind of gelatinized. It becomes a gel, a starchy gel, because of the sugars being released. Complex sugars, right? And we got to break those sugars down. You're familiar with that through, and the diastatic power of your malt to break down your starches. It's the same with the corn, except we're starting at a higher temperature. And most of those barley, most are malted amylase or alpha will denature at these temperatures. That's why they have a high temperature alpha amylase. It's a liquid, and you can add it about 185 degrees, and it'll cleave, those. And I'm sure you've seen all this, but I'll put it up there for those that haven't seen it. And well, let me show the other one. This one's got human that we don't need. Let's just do this one. So this one has your amylopectin and your amylose, and you're going to have both of these in all your grains and fruits in different proportions and percentages, but you're always going to have them all. One's more water soluble than the other one, but anyway, your alpha will cleave these randomly from the outside in. So it goes from the outside to the inside, and so it'll cleave these at just random spots and break them up, right? And then your beta glucanase and your glucoamylase will debranch these into single or disaccharides. Your glucose does a better job of breaking all these down into individual. All these little blue tetrahedrons here that look like benzene rings are all glucose molecules, and they're all bound together with a glycosidic bond. And your alpha amylase will, the high temp at 185, will debranch all these and it'll make it thinner immediately. It makes it much easier to work with. And then you just let it cool. You can use your chillers. You're used to using a chiller in beer making, so you can use your chillers and cool it on down to 155. Turn that chiller off, or run 155 degree water through it if you can, to maintain that 155 for a while, so you can add your malted grains in at that temperature and allow the diastatic natural endogenic enzymes within those malted grains to do their job, right? And then let it cool on down to, you'll have a glucoamylase. There's a liquid glucoamylase. I highly recommend, if you're going to do grains, just don't even think twice about it. Get you some high temp alpha amylase. Even if you do plan on using malts and using the benefiting from the diastatic powers of the malt, I'll talk about two different advantages you'll have using that and this. But get the liquid high temp alpha amylase and the liquid glucoamylase. Now, if you look on the liquid gluco, you'll get it'll vary. I guess it depends on the source of it and the percentages of it. With sometimes it'll have a combination of other amylases in there or enzymes in there that'll help break things down. Some may have protease and all these other ones to help break down other things. But it'll have different temperatures. Some will go in at 140, some will go in at 100. So, and some will go in at temperatures in between there that may have a combination of the two. So, always go by your label when you're adding the glucoamylase, the liquid. But adding them, will do two things. It'll allow you to worry less about the diastatic power of your malt, so you won't have to have, enough diastatic power to convert all that corn if you're using the liquid high temp and the glucose. So you can use a 2-row barley instead of that 6-row, and you can use lower percentages of it, right? Or you could use a barley that's not even malted, if you wanted to get that flavor profile. So, and a rye without being malted, or a wheat without being malted, or a malted wheat and less of it. So you don't have to worry about diastatic if you're using these exogenous enzymes to help, break everything down. So, but the alpha is an endoenzyme. It breaks, or an exoenzyme. It breaks from the outside in, and the beta glucanase and the glucoamylase are both endoenzymes. They break from the inside, and they actually debranch. One's the alpha cleaves, and the beta glucanase and the glucoamylase debranch. They break them all up into single or twos or threes. You may get a disaccharide, you may get a random trisaccharide, but the more gluco you use, the less likely that's going to happen. You're going to end up mostly with monosaccharides, and yeast love those. But, following the temperatures, making sure you gelatinize that corn, let it hold for 90 minutes to 2 hours and fully gelatinize. And then at 185, add that high temp alpha, let it cool to 155 or whatever on this chart, adjunct grains you're adding. So you add those at this, and you can do any percentage. Now that we're using exogenous enzymes, we don't have to worry about diastatic power and all those calculations. Those are kind of out the door. You're very familiar with it in beer making, so you'll take to it like a duck to water. But it is a little bit different that you come from higher temperatures and work down instead of lower temperatures working up. And you don't have to worry about the protein rests and worry about the haze like you do with the beers, because the haze isn't an issue, because you're not bottling this mash, right? You're just going to distill it. So you don't have to worry about that. And you're not going to use expensive hops, because those are oily and skunky and not very good distilled. And they're hard to clean out of your still, and they get oily, and it's hard to get that flavor out, even if you do. So it's no bueno. So that's definitely a little cost cutting, benefit as well. But it is a little bit different than beer making. But since you do understand all that from beer making, you'll definitely benefit. You probably have some of the best yeast ever for, grains. So you definitely be good to go. Yeah, and use them both. Even if you do use those for diastatic power, again, you can use that 2-row instead of the 6 and get more flavor, and you don't have to use as much of it. So you can, just say, oh, I don't want to do 20% or 30% of 2-row. I want a 10%, or I want to use some of this chocolate malt that has no diastatic power. Now I don't have to worry about using other malts for diastatic. I can just use whatever I want for flavor, and then rely on the exogenous enzymes for breaking down the starches. So yeah, I definitely, if you're going to do grains, just get high temp alpha, liquid amylase, and the liquid glucose for sure. A lot of sources, you can get it from Philbilly, you can get it from Amazon, you can get it from North Georgia, you can get it from Prohibition, you can get it from Firm Solutions in Danville, Kentucky. Probably, they serve to a lot of big distilleries and stuff, so they got larger bottles if you're doing some volume, or if you're going commercial, or if you're a legal distiller. Definitely look those guys up. If you're doing some volume, they've got some pretty good deals and great yeast as well. Oh damn, I forgot to share the rest of those links, and y'all told me to. I'm a slacker, man. Sorry for those groups that are just getting these, man. Get busy talking. Or did I send those out? Maybe I did do that. I'm gonna have to go to one of them and see. The joys of getting old, man. Let me go to one of these and see. I don't think I did. I don't think I might have gotten started though and just didn't finish. Got talking, and I think that might be the case. Let me see where I left off here. Left off right here. So let me go and see. Let's see if I shared it to that one. Nope, I didn't. Okay, good deal. Guess I better do that real quickly. So, can't believe I did that. Yeah, that's halfway. It's an hour after y'all told me that. I forgot all about it. Got talking. We'll get them taken care of, though. And most people, don't watch it live anyway. A lot of people catch this later and watch it on a lunch hour or listen to it on the way to work. And we get about 7 or 8% people watch it live, and the other 90+% watch it at their convenience, which is great. But definitely stress, if you want to ask questions, you got to do it live or come to the group and ask them, and we can answer them when we can get to them, which is both are great, as long as you're getting your answers and getting good answers. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I don't blame the people that are misinforming people, because it's what they were taught, right? Somebody misinformed them, and it's kind of like that little lie that gets, goes down the line, and it just doesn't change. It grows and grows as it goes down the line, and it changes. I guess it does change as it goes down the line too. So you got to worry about the changes, and well, that 185 plus went to 155 plus, and next thing you know, people are trying to gelatinize their corn at 150 degrees, and did I share it? I don't remember sharing it. Let me see if I shared it to that one. Nope, I did not. Dang gone, man. I am definitely slacking. That's the Weber group there. Have a group dedicated for all the Weber owners. Now I got myself a question. Did I get it shared to? Oh, it won't let me share it there even. So I'm out of shares even now. Whatever. They've definitely limited me today. Okay, let's see. Let me get back up here. No. Let me see where I left off. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, start out with 2 dent, cut your teeth on that, and then once you do that, then you'll, yeah, definitely get the high temp alpha and the glucoamylase for sure. It's if you're going to, and you don't have to get quarts of it. It's very small, very little amounts that you use, unless you run a whole lot. I think it does come. You don't have to buy it by the gallon. You can get like a quart, last you for a long time. Keep it in the fridge. I guess it'll last a couple of years, but it will start to lose its efficacy over time. So you have to use a little bit more. If it's a year and a half, 2 years, you might have to double up on it. But you'll be able to tell when you get your gravities and how much alcohol you end up pulling. If you get stuck, you didn't get a good conversion. If you can't convert it all, but the glucanase can definitely help you debranch it all down to where it'll work off. Heck yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people making tinctures, and there's a lot of country people that made tinctures for ages and still do. Yeah, you don't want to put hops in there. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. I got confused. I added beer to my water distiller. I don't know how that happened. Tried to donate. Either I donated 20 to nothing because I need some Indian to tell me my password. Okay. To the Hobby Distillers Association. I'm not sure what the membership is or donations. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Buddy, my memory's fading. I don't know. I can't remember half what I used to know, but I try to re-educate myself and keep myself up on it. If I don't, I mean, I'll just sit here, look blindly, and drool one of these days, I guess. Uh, 8 gallon still with a 4-inch column, I'd say, it's you can, but it's you're not going to get much vapor velocity because it's so open. So it's not compressing it. And if you had like a reducer going to 2, it would compress it and feed it through faster. It's going to go through a little slower, but you'll get more volume because it's going slower, but through a larger area, which still will carry more. Um, so it'll probably work off a lot quicker. But I'd say it'll be fine. Probably way overkill. But for the 26 gallon, it's not overkill. But for an 8 gallon, still, it's kind of overkill, but it's work. Yeah, yep. Not in this though, man. No, no, no. You're only a student to your first run, and once you get your first successful run, you're a pro. That's that seems to be the general consensus. I've helped people, and they've literally told me that night. I appreciate all your help, but I made this first run. It's good. I'm good from here on out. And I'm like, but you just understood the basics. There's so much more to learn. Like, nope, I know all I need to know. I'm like, okay, man. They're pro now, man. They don't need to know anymore. It's funny. And then you'll see them asking questions. Okay, I've been running this corn for a while now. I'm wanting to do some brandies. What do I need to know? Yeah. Yeah, it is. 2000. It just takes some more time. That's all. And in an 8 gallon, um, yeah, that's fine in an 8 gallon. Now, if it's in the 26, it's just going to take longer. Where is OJJ? Yeah, yeah, you got to be careful about that. Definitely got to be. Oh, if you're talking about running 8 gallons in a 26, yeah, you definitely want to be very, very, very careful. I wouldn't even do it. I thought you had two different steels, and yeah, I'd be very, very, very wary of that. Big question is low and slow or hard and fast. That's something that you'll decide on your own. Now, stripping runs basically just get your alcohol off, so it just draws all the alcohol off and you know leaves it, your back set and everything else behind. There is flavor left behind, but you're getting the alcohol off there. And then a lot of people won't make any cuts at all on a stripping run. I try to at least take 4 shots and the high heads off, and then I'll let everything mid head all the way into the tails, way down on the tails go, and I'll just collect it all together. You don't have to separate the jars or anything. You can collect it in one container. Best stainless steel. I see a lot of people using plastics. try to use a big stainless steel, cooking pot or something like that. It's much better for you in the long run. We're just starting to understand about microplastics, and a lot of people say, "Oh, but ethanol's fine with HDPE and LDPE and PET that I'm using," and it is. It won't break it down hardly at all, or at all. But you've got ethyl acetate and acetones and other high volatiles that eat away at HDP, HDLP and HDPE and LDPE and PET, low density polyethylene and polyethyltoluene. It'll eat at those. So you're getting some of the plastic coming off because you got heads in there, right? And that's got your ethyl acetates and acetones and other things that will have a corrosive effect on some of the plastics. So try to save it in a stainless pot. I know everybody doesn't have a 5-gallon jar to catch everything in, but if you got a big pot, you can let it drop in a good stainless pot. Or I'd even do aluminum before I would plastic, right? Because it's not going to be a lot of acidic issues that you're going to have to worry about breaking down your aluminum. But if you got a big stainless pot, let it strip into that, and then proof it down right to less than 80, preferably 60, and then run it again, and you'll see that at a lower and slower temperature it'll come off, because at 60 proof you're gonna have it's going to boil off in 180 some degrees, 185 maybe degrees. Let's see. Here we go. At 60, which would be 30 on here, right between that, 185 degrees. Exactly. So at 185, when you run lower, that's, your 185 is going to, start distilling. You're going to start distilling at that temperature instead of the 195 that you did before with a 12% wash. That's so on your second run, you run it lower and slower, and you can make better cuts and get a little more refined product and attenuation and better flavor for some distillates. But some distillates, are better run once through muddy lees, with a lot of heads and esters and yeast and everything else, like cognacs and other stuff, which I've done that way, and but you have to be very careful. And and it just depends on what you're distilling and what your preferences are. Most people kind of go by the drip, right? So when you're stripping, you can just let it pour, and when you're doing your final runs, you can go, let it go a little bit slower, and of course lower, because you're going to be proofing it down. You're going to be starting out with a higher proof distillate for sure. And so it doesn't take as much temperature to get it to come off. So you want to go slower. So with that 185, right at 60 proof, you're going to see drips coming off there, whereas it took 10 degrees higher, at 12%. And so making your cuts go a little bit slower. It's a little easier to make your cuts. You get less smearing, you get less compression, and again, it's how you do it. If you've got, a deflegmator that's compressing, and creating some back pressure, and you've got reflux going on, then you're gonna start compressing, heads or tails, depending on when you cut it on. If you cut it on early, you compress the heads in there. If you cut it on, during the hearts, when the hearts start kicking in, you'll start compressing some of the tails in there. So you can, depending on what you want to compress, you can adjust it that way as well. And there's lots of tools in distilling, and it can get a little more complex than just a simple pot still, and you can manipulate it a lot more once you get to the equipment and learn to experiment and different distillates. You'll want different things, like we were talking earlier, a lot of cognacs, which are very rich in flavor, that we use some of the lees. So they don't let it get clear to rack it off and run it. They run it when it's cloudy and stuff. They might even just stir it all up and dump it in there, or dump a certain amount in there and stir it up and go with a steam jacket, and they get that flavor. Some people say, oh, it's yeasty, but after it ages and containing some of those esters, and it can produce some very strong flavors. Some people think the flavors are muddy, that doesn't have a lot of initial, medium, and end. It's a lot, kind of like my banana brandy kind of ended up being just one big flavor. I think it got kind of muddied, but some people prefer that for certain distillates. So it will vary. That's part of the art of distillation. You'll learn different techniques to get whatever you want, and whatever you want depends on preference and taste. So there's no fact to it. It's just what you prefer. So once you learn the basics, you can start experimenting and see what you can do. And that's what they were fighting for, like I was talking about earlier. A lot of these laws are creating are not enabling a lot of hobby distillers to create new techniques, new flavors, new ways of doing things, and taking some innovation from the distillation science. And it's that's not a good thing. What's going on, Wormy? Oh, that's good. Let me see. One of them people in the shadows. Speaking of shadow, let's have another shot from shadow. Right. And having the steel and the equipment, not everybody runs a pot still. A lot of people enjoy running columns, and like Clem was saying, once you run columns, it's kind of hard to go back to just regular old pot still mode. But for certain distillates, you want to do that. But for a lot of things, it may save you a run, by letting it, go over a. What's going on, Frank? Did you have a good time this weekend? I know you went popcorn. Pretty good brandy West made there. Almost good as mine. That's got to be 140 though. That's good to hear, brother. I know you was there. There we go. Make both of them ears burn. Go to this page to see what he's up to. He posted yesterday. Hopefully he's on. Well, your strippers better be 18. We're going to send you to Epstein Island. That's funny. Not really. I probably shouldn't joke about that. Pretty serious. But one thing I will say is, it seems like a lot of people are very concerned about Epstein Island, and I agree. Definitely should be, but it seems like they're less concerned for the girls and the victims than they are about imprisoning the guilty that did. I think the concern should be more for the girls, and if that's the case, why are you so mad at ICE? They've saved so many child victims coming across the border. They've been, kidnapped and trafficked. How can you be? I think it's all about ruining people's lives instead of getting the guilty parties. It's, people are crazy these days, man. That's why I don't like talking about politics. It just gets me pissed off. That's awesome, brother. That you'll be ready for put that in a big little 15 barrel. Oh, absolutely, brother. And we're here every Tuesday and Saturday, 8 Eastern. So anytime you got any questions or, join us on DIY Shine and Steel Building. Me and Clint's on there. Anytime you got questions, jump on there. We'll try to get to them. Probably a little slower to respond to them on there than we are here on the live. And I'm not able to talk. I hate typing out long-winded replies like I can speak it. And I'd much rather speak it and use my charts. I love using the charts because, and let me put that chat back up there. I'm sorry. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and if you can visualize what's happening, it's a lot easier to understand, especially when you see those starch structures, the amylose and amylopectin, and you see how, the poly saccharides can get broken down, debranched, cleaved, and into single molecules or disaccharides that the yeast can eat. It's a lot easier to understand what that amylase is doing. Actually, I can get a little bit more scientific and show some of these pictures of like let me see here. I love these pictures too. Something like this. This is the actual enzymes. This is the top one here is your beta. That's the enzyme in the middle. And when that enzyme comes into contact with that oligosaccharide, which is basically a group of saccharides, generally from 3 to 12. This one looks like it has more than that on it, but no, it's already been debranched there where the green is. So you've got some with it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 or 11 molecules there in the middle. See, that's the endo when you need the endo enzymes that'll break it down in the middle. And that's why that beta comes into handy. You can see that alpha's already broken it down on the outside where those little green, the little green shows that it's being cleaved at that. And then all those reds together are still bound by glycosidic bonds. And that's when your endoenzymes, break down from the inside out, right? And they debranch. So that beta amylase will go in there, and each little swirl of that, I don't know if you can see it real well. I've got bigger pictures of it. It'll get in between a couple of those, and that'll break that bond. And that little swirl from there on down to the end of that swirl, that little twist, it goes away. It's gone. It's useless. But there's so many in there that it will lock into most every one of these glycosidic bonds and break them. And a lot of times they'll be organized. And you can see where the glucoamylase, this second one down here, third one down where it says gluco, you can see where it turns every one of them green. It breaks every one of those bonds. It's very complex. The alpha, you can see where it cleaves from the outside. So you got some disaccharides, you got some trisaccharides, but on the inside, you still have some oligosaccharides and dextrins. And then after you use that gluco, and you can see it just makes them all monosaccharides, and the yeast just love that shit. But there's some also more complex enzymes as well. Maltodextrins, they're a little bit different, so it gets a little bit more in the complex. And I've got some other pictures too that help show. And let's see, that one's pretty good though. I actually forgot I had that one. Wasn't the one I was looking for. There's ones that show basically how they align and how they work. Here's the 3 basic types though. Is your alpha amylase, your beta amylase, and your Y amylase, which I think is a gluco amylase. And you can see the complexities of those, but let me find that one. It was awesome. And oh, yeah, here we go. This chart. You can see where different shapes of these starches. Well, the glycogen on the right, that's animals. That's in our bodies too. That's what our natural glucose from, that from our bodies, the pancreas in our bodies and our spit and stuff break that down. So that's we don't deal with those. We deal mostly with the starches, and then when we deal with fruits and some of the grains and stuff, we deal with cellulose as well. Um, but you can see the structure of them here. And let me get this chat out of the way. So the shape of this amylose. So some of them are straight, like your cellulose is basically straight. Your amylose is a twirl, and then your amylopectin is a heavily branched, kind of like this picture that I showed earlier. Here, it shows your branched amylopectin, and your amylose is, just a little spiral. It's actually a straight chain, but it curls, and that's what you're seeing. It doesn't curl back in on itself. Those aren't loops. That's just a kind of a spiral, and it's hard for them to draw that without it looking like a loop. But I love this stuff, man. But there's also one that shows how each easily intertwines with the other one. Here's a pectinase. This is breaks down the pectins, and those you can see in the pectins, it'll get into the cells. You saw that cellulose, and it'll break down those cells because those cells are lined up straight, and these are kind of lined up straight, so they really intersect with them well and can break them down real well and break those cell walls down so we can get all the sugars out that we can that way. So, but most of the amylases are kind of designed to enter into each of those different types of starches, complex starches, to break them down. It's pretty interesting science. It's amazing. Uh-oh. I got you, brother. I'll bring bologna. How's things going on in West Virginia? A lunatic gamer. Let me guess. You playing Call of Duty, or are you like Arc Raiders, or Fortnite, Apex Legends? What we like? I've been playing Arc Raiders. I play a lot of Warzone and Arc Raiders. I used to play Counter Strike in the leagues, semi-pro, back when I was younger, probably about your age. Been quite a few years ago, though, like mid-30s. That's before there was pro gamers here. Yeah, it's been rainy here in Kentucky too, brother. It's all coming your way. Hey, let me get that chat back up here. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Yeah, there. I've got a better chart somewhere. So absolutely, got to break those. Got to make them down. Oh, Red Dead. Okay, I was wondering which one of those. I played that. Red Dead Redemption, I think. Yeah, I got no Red Dead. I've played before. That is a good game. I liked it. I hadn't played the newest one though. It was quite some time ago. It's all right. So you're a little older than you look in your picture, then. Yeah, I love gaming, man. I play mostly playing Arc Raiders right now. I've been playing it a lot, but I got a little burnout on Call of Duty and all the cheaters and Warzone and stuff, and enjoy Arc Raiders. It's not very good for PvP, but it's fun as a PvE and having fun. All right, brother, we're here. Anytime you got questions, Tuesday, Saturday, or definitely join the DIY Shine and Steel building page and ask your questions in there. If you're on Facebook, uh, got some good information. All the files, all the files that I've shared tonight should be in the file section there. Some of these amylase pictures, and some of those conversions may not be in there, but most of the charts and stuff that are most important, like this, boiling points and temperature to add your adjunct grains, they're all in there. Couple of weeks, 49. Well, next year you hit the big 50, man. From there, it's like, wow, I'm a half a century old, man. You'll start feeling it, unless you are already. I started feeling it in my 50s. Yeah, there are, man. Call of Duty got so full of cheaters. I got so burnt out on it because it was obvious. You see people tracing you through the walls and shit, and Arc Raiders is getting a little bit bad for cheating as well. And game creators, I don't know. I don't know if they just afraid they're going to lose some income if they start getting rid of them. And you got a lot of streamers that cheat, and they're afraid if they ban them that a lot of the people are going to listen to that streamer down in the game, and they'll follow them away from it. So I think they lose more to cheaters than from streamers complain about it. What are your thoughts on that? What's going on, Miss Tammy? Hope you're doing well. That's awesome. Awesome. So you get the Vever. Now you got the 3-pot Vever or the football steel? Either one will work. I like the football a little bit better. It's a little more able to, be modifiable and very versatile. But the 3-pot, once you make a few, if you've got the 3-pot or the 2-pot, there are some modifications that you can make that'll definitely help you out and make your liquor taste better and make it a little easier to run. Nothing wrong with it, but you'll definitely have to make a few changes. I'm doing pretty good, Tammy. Doing pretty good. Can't complain. Sometimes I don't feel good, but it's just a little upset tummy or something like that, or a migraine. And at my age, if that's the worst thing that's happening, I guess I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, the 3-pots. One of the most important thing is getting your condenser, worked on, and getting a little bit better condenser. Lunatic. Let me see here now. Pull up a picture. I think I got a picture of a 3-pot. Well, I thought I did. Maybe it's in a different file. There. Maybe it's in here. No. Here I am back here. No, I don't have a picture of it. Well, let's see. Let me jump online here and pull down a Vever 3-pot. And I'll just pull up. I know I had it's probably in screenshots, damn it. That's for well, shit, let's open that up and make another screenshot of it. And I'll move it this time. That way I'll have it next time. I probably have about 5 pictures of that in my screenshots from doing this exact same thing. There's 1, there's 2. Yeah, I got 2 in there. So let me go ahead and just drag and drop that. That way, if I don't do it now, I won't remember to. Now we got her. Transferred. Oh, okay. Here we go. So this is your 3-pot. And as you can see in the copper coming out of this pot, a little on the small side. This is a 13-gallon. What size is yours? I don't think you said 13-gallon. Okay, that's exactly what we're looking at. This is a 13-gallon. So if you wanted to, you could put like a valve there and maybe go with a little bit bigger 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch valve. And you could also take a ferrule and have it welded right into the top center of that. You'll see a little indentation of a circle. You could have a 2-inch welded ferrule there, and it would make you very versatile. But anyway, So coming off this still into the into what is called the puke pot or the puke box or whatever, it's puke pot, but it's supposed to be a thumper. So if you don't include that little short down leg, it's not going to be a thumper. It's basically just a chamber that's going to catch a lot of puking and a lot of water, from redistillation. From the vapors going through, they'll condense first, and so you'll get a lot of um, water condense off. But you'll see that you've got your condenser sitting right on top of your steel, which is not a good thing at all. Slobber box, yeah. Um, kind of a puke pot, but that keeps heat right at your condenser where you really don't need it. Right. You can use a bulkhead fitting right there. You can have somebody weld one in for you, or you can silver. I don't know about silver soldering stainless to stainless. I don't guess you can do that, but probably could braze it on there. But bulkhead fittings are cheap and easy. I pulled one up the other day. Let's see if it's still in my screenshots. I don't know if I saved it or just showed it. Yeah, here we go. So you can get one of these off Amazon, $16. I think the 2-inch, maybe that's the wrong picture, but the 2-inch is much more, is $17. And you can take this and drill a hole in the very top of that and put this bulkhead fitting in there, and then you can go to tri-clamp. Now that lid's not going to be very stable. It's not thick enough. So any columns or anything that you have coming off this is best if you have something to support it. So for me, I've got a little hook in the ceiling above the oven. I'll just run a little wire. You can use coat hangers and stretch it down, or if you got wire, you can have it. If you got something that's pretty heat tolerant to 200, 210 degrees, that won't melt or anything, you can use whatever. Your rope would be fine. Nylon's not going to be really affected by 200 degrees, or a copper, or not a copper, but a cotton twine or something, not going to be affected by that as long as it's heavy enough to support it. But yeah, it's so your condenser, though, this condenser is grossly undersized, and you really have to keep cold water in there to keep it, efficient. So you really need to get that away from the top of the pot, right? And I wouldn't even recommend using the slobber box, pot, whatever you want to call it, the undersized thumper at all, and just go directly from this pot into a decent sized worm. Now you can use what copper that you have on here and just use that compression fitting to add it to a little bit more copper, or you can just go buy a roll and get it rolled up. Don't buy straight sticks of hard copper and try to bend it and make a coil out of it. Just buy the coiled copper. 10, 12 foot's plenty for a 5-gallon bucket. And then, solder on, your compression fittings on the end, or tri-clamps if you decide to go tri-clamp. And you can definitely improve the steel. 13 is a good size, and if you do that, you can also eventually, if you do decide to go to a bigger steel like a 26, like Clint Scott, or 18.5 or a keg steel, you can use this as a thumper, or you can use it for cooking your grains in. There's so many things that you'll be able to use it for, so it's not useless anymore. But yeah, try to get that condenser away from your pot a little bit and enlarge it, and it'll definitely help you make better cuts and make better liquor, and it'll make it a lot easier, because it's really a pain in the ass to keep that cold. And a lot of people have to pack it with ice and add ice cold water, and it's easy to overflow. You can't really get enough flow through there to make it efficient with just a 40, 50 degree coolant going through it. So you really have to, a lot of times people will take a bottle, fill it full of water, or fill it 3/4 the way with water, freeze it, and just set it in the middle of that copper, and be ice, to help try to keep it cool. But it's just really inefficient. And if you can, that's, and those little white gaskets, that go from, that lid to that copper, and on those fittings on the little pots. Those little white gaskets tend to crack on you as well. Um, but it's other than that, you can make the modifications, make it a decent steel. But definitely adding that 1.5 inch, 2 inch tri clamp to the center of that will enable you to, move up to where you can start using columns and stuff. So you can, spend about $150 and 80. I've seen them as cheap as 80, but that's on a really good sale. But sometimes you can find them. Well, see where is it at? Here we go. Yeah. So you can find these, Fieldability, eBay, Amazon. Most of your steel builders will have these, anywhere from 80, 150, maybe 160. And you can add that directly onto that 2 inch ferrule on your pot and have your nice column with a deflagmator and a shotgun condenser, and be a lot, be able to make it higher proof and make you some vodka, and it works out pretty well. And these are modular. See, once you adapt to that tri clamp system, you can use, a whole host of things, a lot of elbows, straights. There's a lot of different things that you can, upgrade and change. So it's pretty adaptable. That's good. Definitely try to keep them away. It's okay to have the thumper on top and keep it warm. That way it stays warmer and it functions better and you get a little less reflux. But you definitely don't want that condenser up there. What's going on, Steve? Good to see you, brother. Well, what steals that? I just pull these off Amazon. I'm not using pictures that people send me and stuff. These pictures come off Amazon. Feel it from the top. Well, you know, most people will definitely want to feel from the bottom. Problem with this is, why is there even a valve on the top? You're supposed to fill it in from the bottom. You can open up your valve and, regulate the water coming in, but the top valve doesn't need a valve. It needs to be actually a little larger. That way you can increase the flow and not worry about it overflowing. And, but yeah, it's best just to go to a 5 gallon bucket with a spiral, with your coil, copper coil in there, spiral down. Get the coil, the softer copper in the coil, and use a 5 gallon bucket. And you can do a bulkhead fitting to come out with your copper on that as well. And it definitely works a lot better that way for sure. That's cool. Yeah, it's okay to keep the thumper up there, to keep it warm, because you really do want to kind of keep that warm. But you definitely, if it means keeping your condenser further away, then so be it. It's best that you do it that way to keep the condenser, further away. You definitely don't want it around the heat and the top of that pot, because all the heat's rising coming off there, and yeah, it's not good. But really, if you could modify that condenser and get you a 5 gallon bucket one, that way, in the future too, when you upgrade, which everybody does, um, you'll be able to. But most people get smaller. Most people start out with a 5 or a 7 or 8 or whatever, and they're like, man, I wish I'd gotten the 13 or the 18, and so they eventually end up upgrading to something a little bit bigger. But yeah, if you can get that 5 gallon bucket and make a little bit bigger of a condenser, it will definitely help you make your cuts, and make it a little easier to keep, constant and cool, and just a little bit more efficient. But yeah, it's a fine little pot once you get it all lined out. They work just fine. you definitely want to feel from the bottom, but it's it drains faster from the bottom, because it's got pressure pushing down. And I understand why he wants to do it that way. It's better to just take that small thing out of the top, that small valve out of the top, drill a bigger hole, put a bigger, outlet on there and have a bigger outlet. That way you can increase the flow from the bottom, because that's the problem. But really, the best solution is just to get a bucket, 5-gallon bucket for free, and get you a copper coil. And you can use the coil there. You can just attach it to another piece, and you won't have to buy as much copper coil that way. And just, but a lot of times too, this is a 3/8 inch copper coming off here. What size is yours? Is it half or 3/8? That's, once it gets to 13, you really need to go with a 5/8 or something, get a little bit more flow. Because what happens when you have that smaller line coming off there, your pot can build up pressure because it can't push all the steam off there that it needs to at a given time. So you start building a little back pressure, and anytime you increase the pressure, you increase the temperature. And when you increase the temperature, you increase the rate in which everything comes off, and it tends to come off all together, kind of like when you strip run. And it's harder to make cuts when you got a lot of stuff coming off together. All right, Frank. Good seeing you, brother. We'll see you Saturday. Have a good week, my friend. Right. And in a canister too, yeah, in a canister type filter. You definitely want to go into the bottom. That way it fills from the bottom up. Sometimes when you fill from the top, now it wasn't this because you can see it, of course, and it's open. But in those canisters, anything that's contained, a lot of times if you go in through the top, it'll just stream down and go out the bottom, and you'll have a large air chamber in there. So yeah, you always want to go in through the bottom. But I understand what your thought process is um, behind that. But I would definitely go with the bucket and not even deal with it. Yeah, and if you have a larger one, you don't have to worry about as much flow. But when you've got this small one here, so you have to increase the flow to the point. And I understand what his thought process is. When you're feeding it in the top and you have the pressure of the water kind of pushing down, it will flow out faster through the bottom than it would the top, because it doesn't have the pressure pushing down when it's at the top. So it will drain a little faster, but that's just proof that you need a larger fitting at the top to drain it faster. And if you're going to waste your time and effort doing that, it might as well just get a bucket and increase your worm size and just go all out. And then you won't have to upgrade your worm. When you upgrade your steel, you'll already have a worm capable of doing, up to 20 or 30-gallon steel. Doesn't have the copper line coming from the pot. It's the flex line as well. Okay. Yep. Which is fine. The flex line is okay. It's stainless. It's a lot of people says it costs smearing. I don't know what the inside looks like. But if it were me and when I started with this, I would definitely go get me about a 20-foot 5/8 inch coil, and I would replace that copper coming out of the pot into the puke pot or the slobber box, and I would get rid of the flex lines, and I would use this 5/8 or 1 inch, whatever 5/8 soft copper to come out of that into the coil, into your condenser, and then I'd put it in a 5-gallon bucket for sure. Yeah, that I actually started out with an old pressure cooker, 32-quart pressure cooker, and much smaller plumbing. So it did smear like a motherfucker. It was horrible. And I scorched the shit out of it. I was using fire. It was tough. I was young. Me and my buddies, I didn't give a shit. It was horrible. We drank it anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'd get the bucket, bro. You just get your 5 gallon bucket and some flexible copper in there, and be done with the issue. If you don't want to do that, you can literally take that valve out, drill it out, and put in a plastic. You don't even have to have metal there. It's you can put in plastic and a plastic exhaust with a threaded that you could thread it to whatever garden hose to empty out whatever bigger, and you could drain faster, and it'd be larger. That way you could actually have some increase your flow rate. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just more work, and it's harder to keep that distillate coming out, in the 65, 70, 75 degree range, 60 to 75 degree range you want, which isn't critical, but it's optimal. But it's just a lot more work, and some more shit you got to do to keep it cool. And I had to do just last week in one of the groups, is it supposed to be spitting steam out? Because he wasn't able to keep it cool enough. He didn't have ice on it. He's just trying to cool it with tap water. And it just wasn't, you can't get it flowing through there fast enough. Some people's tap water down in the south, it's coming out 70 degrees, 80 degrees, man. It's not going to work real well. Yeah, you got to have ice. Yeah, there's not much there at all. Yeah, but I definitely go to a bucket for sure. Get coil. Yeah, don't try to roll the copper. Just get you a box of copper. 50 feet. Yeah, it'd be awesome. It's probably definitely a lot cheaper by the foot when you get the more volume. But search around. There's some. You can get it a lot cheaper than your Home Depot or somebody like that's going to have it if you shop around. Right, right. Yeah, I just use full milk jugs in mine, in my reservoir. I just set a big old milk jug right in the middle of it, and it keeps it good and cool. And I use a little palm pump to pump it through my shotgun and my deflag. Got a little little Y valve in between the two, and I can regulate the flow going to each, and works out real well. But I don't buy any ice. That's tough when you're having to buy ice. Just another expense. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Now I'm not knocking the pot. They're perfectly fine pots. It just to make them optimal and to make it a little less work on you and to get a little better result. Um, it can be improved on. But yeah, they work fine. Yeah, I've got a few refrigerators here at the house. Man, I don't know how I ever lived without 3 refrigerators and freezers. Man, I keep a lot of stuff frozen, and I keep one refrigerator. It's just for beverages and adult beverages and cans. I'll have 2 or 3 cases of pop and a little bit of shine in them. Yeah, I mean it's a lot more work. Yeah, definitely don't want to over tighten, especially where those little white gaskets are. Those PTFE gaskets, if they're in even that, they're pretty brittle and they break pretty easily. And I've seen a lot of biscuit dough piled up on these as a result from their leaking. But yeah, if you could use the bulkhead fitting like that and go right through the middle of that roof to a 2-inch tri clamp or an inch and a half, it would definitely benefit you. I gotta take a look. Aspirin. I get heart arrhythmia, and I get to feeling bad sometimes. Like I am right now, I just got a big wave of it. My heart skips beats every once in a while, and it scares the shit out of you. I get a little heavy heart, chest pain. So yeah, they leak. Yeah, I've seen a lot of biscuit dough on them. Yeah, they do. They're brittle as hell. And I think Philbilly sells the gasket sets. I know he used to, Not the big gaskets for the rim. Those are tough to find for those and the football steels, but the small gasket sets, I think he has those. And I know he has them for the keg steel too. And to the gentleman that was here earlier talking about wanting to upgrade, you can also use what's called a milk can. These are called a milk can steels. So those are easily converted. You can add a ferrule 4-6 inch to the top of one of those. That's a 4 inch going into a 4 inch column there. I think some of the 26s, some of these guys are talking about has that they're probably running a milk can and a milk can type. And there's also the keg steels. So you can get a regular beer keg and you can get you one of these columns, or like the column I just showed here. That right there will sit right on that beer keg just as well, and probably be better. But both will work, and set it right on your keg. And just set that on the turkey fryer, and you're in business. So you can get into it pretty cheaply. It doesn't take a lot of expense. But you can move on up to $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 copper pots that are beautiful and very efficient and very nice. But there is a little increased maintenance with those too. So you got to take the good with the bad. Yeah, the 3 pot for what you pay for them, just for what you get the boiler for. I mean, it's hard to find a 13-gallon, boiler for what you're gonna, pay for that 13.2 gallon steel, $109 from Weber. So it's hard to find a $13 or 13-gallon stock pot with a clampable lid for $100. So and it's good for stewing. You don't have to just use it for that. Your old lady can use it for making big batches of salsa or cooking up, jams, jellies, canning. You could actually do like I did, and if you convert to the tri clamp, you can take a end fitting, drill it, tap it, and buy the pressure relief and the little spinner that goes on a pressure cooker, and put your little thermometer in there, and you can make a little pressure cooker out of them, right? They'll hold enough pressure. I mean, 10, 15, 5, 10, 15 psi is what it's rated for on the pressure cooker, and these definitely hold that. Big electric, your stove takes that long to heat it up? Man, I can put my stove, that Weber 18.5 on my stove. Of course, it's got the 5 elements, and it's got like a 3200, I think a 2200, and then it's got a warmer in the middle. And I run all three of those full blast. And that 18.5, I can be dripping in a little over an hour. Yeah, the 18.5 football, really, that's, if you can afford it for the extra $100, spend the 200, getting the 18-gallon football with the tri clamp already there, 18.5 gallons, you can run 15, with no problem of puking, which is more than you can do in a steel. You can sit it down on the stove and cook it. You can sit it on a gas burners and, cover 2 gas burners on the stove and cook it. You can put it on a turkey fryer. You can have a ferrule welded into the side and go electric into it. It's that football head's perfectly fine. You can pack it with copper. The canister filter is okay. It's not the best, but it works. I think mine had a little negative sloping in it when it got coiled up, and I got a little smearing and a little sputtering. But I bought a couple of these, so I have a couple shotgun condensers that I can run on there, which I do run on there. And that's another good thing. These parts, if you add up these parts separately, that spool, the sight glass, the flag, the 2 elbows, the shotgun, and the drip, those are individually well over $200 and some dollars. You can buy every bit of this for 80 to 160. So definitely a good value just for the parts. 2 burners, 10 gallons, and it's still taking you a few to get a drip. I mean, do you crank it? I crank mine full blast, man. Crank it wide effing open. Keep it, you can actually take the steel and kind of, keep moving it around to shake it up until it gets hot enough to where you don't have to worry about sediments. But yeah, crank that shit up. And then once you get a drip, you can start slowing it down. Now, doing cleaning runs and doing water will take a little longer than a distillate because water is just going to have a boiling point of 210, right? So you're 20 degrees cooler when you're going to be coming off, or 15 degrees cooler when you're going to be coming off with a mash. So it's going to happen a little faster for you. But yeah, crank it up, get it to drip, and then crank it back. Oh, 1500 watt burner on the stove. Yeah, mine had my old stove. It had the dual on the right side. It had the dual burner, so it's got like 2 burners and one on the front right big one. And then on the back one was a 22, which is a pretty good for a small burner. That's a pretty good size for a small burner. It's an older Frigidaire, but it had the dual element front right burner, and it 3200. It's a cooker. So the 3200 plus the 2200 plus the warmer, I crank that warmer up too, just to help, and that's good. Yeah, mine had the 5, so it's got that center warmer. I just run it on the 2, and I'll move it around a little bit while it's warming up, and try to distribute the heat and keep it from settling down, kind of disturb it a little bit. Are okay? If they're element, if it's like a glass top, it's not going to be good. But if it's got like the elements and stuff, yeah, you could move them closer and drill a hole, and you could actually, instead of moving them, just drill a hole in the middle, and or add 2 more burners in between, and have 6 burners, right? And just add 2 more switches and wire it in, as long as you can wire it. Oh, vent in the middle. I know what you're talking about. My mom had one of those. Yep. Well, just keep that in the kitchen, man. You can go to some of these used appliance shops, $50, a lot cheaper and easier than trying to buy and finagle. And you could get my old Frigidaire for $50, and that some bitch it's good. Again, it's old, but it's got that dual element on the front right and the back. Check those burners; they're good, man. Yeah, I know what the one you're talking about. It's actually got the coil burners instead of the glass top. Yeah, I just found an old stove. Mine's an old Frigidaire. It's got the glass top. It'll handle 18 and a half. The weight doesn't bother it, phase it. I've had that some bitch plumb full. I've run it 18 hours running triple runs. Not a problem. I do have, like I said, a hook and some wires to hold the apparatus that I got on top of it, because there's like probably 80 pounds worth of plumbing and parts and stuff sitting on top of it. There's quite a bit of stuff. I have pretty extravagant setup, but yeah, just get you an old Frigidaire like mine. Just do the research, get the model number and Google it and see what those elements are. Try to find the one that's got the dual element on the front right. It's 3,200 watts. It's awesome, man. It'll fucking get shit boiling quick. You wish you had it in your kitchen, but put it in your shine shack or down your basement, and have you a little cannon kitchen down your basement, or a laundry room, or wherever you got room, if you got room. Oh, well, my stove, yeah, mine stove sits right underneath it. I just pull it out. Yeah, the hook I have is in the ceiling in the front, so I just pull my stove out a little bit from the wall to clear the fan and stuff when I run. When I run with the stove, right? So if it's raining or cold all winter, if I run it all during the winter, it's on the stove. Or if it's raining, I want to run, I'll run it on the stove. Actually, it's pretty convenient on the stove because of the type of stove it is and the way it heats. But no, 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 no. It longer it takes to heat up, it doesn't change how it comes off. Actually, it's like a low and slow. It'll come off, and you'll actually lower and slower the easier it is to make the cuts. Really, you don't get it all coming off quickly and kind of together. It doesn't come off separately. You're still not going to get fractional distillation on it, but no, you'll be fine. It's just a matter of time and sitting there, and it could be faster. That's the only thing. You'll sit there and think, damn, if I had a different stove, I wouldn't have been here 6 hours. I'd been here 4. Or if I wouldn't have been here 8 or 10 hours, I'd have been here, 6. So, if you do it every once in a while, it's not a big deal. But the more you do it, it's like, man, I'm burning time, wasting time. And if you're impatient like me, you'll start using that old stove. Yeah. Right, right. Unless you're going into something, right? If you're going into a fractional steel, or if you're going into plates or something like that, it's going to be a little different. Or you've got a deflag, but just in pot steel mode coming off the Vever. Yeah. All right, y'all. It's 11:30. I'm gonna have to get off here. Not feeling real well. Gonna go up and get some rest. But thanks for everybody for tuning in. It's 11:30. We had a pretty good Tuesday night. I guess Saturday the 13th. All right, not Friday. Okay, good deal. So I guess we'll be back on here Saturday the 13th for everybody who wants to come back and visit. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just, every once in a while I've got irritable bowel syndrome, and I wasn't feeling real well because I had to stuff myself and eat real quick. I mean, I literally at 7:59 was opening up StreamYard, and I did it in record time. I got it up and going. I was open. Started at 8:01, so I was a little bit late. But yeah, I mean, I've just got a little bit of arrhythmia, and when that happens, and I've got already, my stomach wasn't feeling well the whole night, and then that kicks in. It kind of, I just don't feel well, but I'll be all right. Yep, love y'all too, man. We'll see y'all this weekend, though. Everybody have a great rest of your week. We will see you Saturday the 13th at 8 Eastern. Till then, no, I don't have alpha gal. Thank God. I eat the hell out of meat, and even if I did, I just deal with the allergies. I know Donnie had it, man, and dealing with that, and it's definitely something I don't want. But no, I've got irritable bowel syndrome, and I probably I've got gluten intolerances. I'm a celiac, and so is my mom, my sisters, and it's kind of a genetic thing. And every time I eat any kind of carbs like that, it glutens, it bothers me and stuff. So they have the IBS, and it's like I said though, if that's all I got at 63 to worry about, I'm doing all right. A little tummy, I take some tummy pills. I can take a couple little aspirins, and I'll feel better. But I'm blessed to so far not have cancer or strokes or anything major like that. So I'm not going to sit and feel sorry for myself knowing that there's so many people out there that have it a hell of a lot worse than I do. So I just have to rough it up, tough it up, and get through it, and count my blessings for the good health that I do have. So definitely could be a lot worse. So everybody, we all have our little things that bother us. Most of us do when you get my age anyway. And if that's all that it is, I guess, we can count our blessings and be thankful that it's just that. And yeah, Miss Tammy fell down and broke her hip. Definitely hope that's feeling better. But anyway, we'll see you gals on guys and gals, Tammy included. We'll see y'all Saturday at 8. Have a great week. Peace out. Shine on. Love y'all. See you then. Good night.